Hey, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a good 4th of July. I've had hit or miss days, and there's other shit going on, but I think a lot of it's got to do with just because I've had it where I didn't do anything all day except for rehab my foot, and it was really weird because the days like Wednesdays, usually Wednesdays and Saturdays, I wasn't when I got the boot, I wasn't trying to walk around on it. I would leave the boot off and I would just sort of stretch it and work on mobility. And the reason I did that is, and I might be wrong. I absolutely could be wrong. But I know, like for working out, you can get into a rut where if you do something every day, like stretching, you do not want to stretch every day. At least most people don't. There's probably people out there that it don't bother, but you don't want to stretch every day because you'll get to where you'll plateau. You won't really make any gains. You want to do it a little more a little more irregularly. Same thing with fitness and other stuff. If you're in the gym every day, every now and then you got to take a cheat day and just get away from it, and then your body gets confused. Otherwise, if you're doing the same thing every day, day after day, your body gets used to it and it doesn't improve. So, and that's my theory. It could absolutely, but like when I went and saw the nurse practitioner like a week or two ago, she said that it looked like I had pretty good mobility on it. So I'm pretty happy about that.
New goods today, please.
Okay. Now, I got one thing I gotta do here. Hang on. I had days where I wasn't feeling good, but I still got on and played with my other character. So I got some.
I cannot afford that.
I got some Paragon points. I want to put those in. I did that, I think it was the last time I was playing this character. I forgot all about it, and I'm like, oh my god, make your job a little easier. Go put the points on. But, okay, I want to start this out. If you follow the UAP, UFO, UAP thing, almost said UAW, and this is my crappy prepaid phone. Yeah, the company that's helping me with my disability, they got a hold of me, and I don't know why, but they're like, oh yeah, well, you need to update all your information, and it's been over 6 months, so it's not like they're asking for this every week. And I go, well, and they go online and fill this out. I still have trouble getting upstairs. I just don't want to fall for something stupid, I brought the cat litter box eventually down here. I brought my bed down here. So I just, with rare exceptions, I do not go upstairs anymore. And at least, and when my foot gets better, I don't think I'm gonna go back to it. Maybe not, but I just don't think I fell on one step going out to the porch. I just don't think I'm going to be regularly spending time on the stairs. Okay, now, if you are a UAP UFO enthusiast, I don't care if you're a true believer, an experiencer, or maybe you're like me. You just find this stuff fascinating. You're trying to keep an open mind, and I don't have a problem with any one of them. It's just some people come off as crazy, and I personally have trouble. I personally have trouble with that. They just don't come off as credible. They don't come off as believable. Like there's a guy, and I can't think of his name, and I really don't know. I'm being completely honest. This is just a gut feeling. It's my impression, and I'm entirely willing to admit that he doesn't deserve it. I don't know, but there's this guy, and I'm not going to mention his name because, like I said, I don't really have anything on him. Every time you see him, he makes sense. He really does. I don't disagree with what he's saying. There's just something about his personality that gives me like a warning. It just flips a switch, And I'm not saying I don't believe him. I'm not saying he's wrong. It's just he comes off and, God, I can't think of the guy's name. I've seen him with and without glasses. And he seems like he's got a pretty respectful following. I've seen him with good people. I've seen him with people that I think are legit. But, like, there's a guy, and I'll mention him by name. And again, this is more my opinion than anything else. But there's a guy named Mick West out there. And again, I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to... I'm just not trying to drive anybody. If you like Mick West, you just go jump on that bandwagon. You go drink the Kool-Aid or whatever. But a lot of what he says doesn't make any sense. And, like, I look at stuff like he did a thing, and I did finally see him, but, like, on the new season of The Proof Is Out There, I didn't see him. Like, or last season or season before, he was on there quite regularly as a debunker. But he debunked a photo, well, 3 photos that were taken, I think, back in the 60s. And I've seen him and other people do this where they talk about, they take and I'm not saying it was this one, but they'll take, like, an old picture. And what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, well, nowadays it's real easy to do it. Yeah, but back then it wasn't. And the credible experts will tell you, yeah, based on what we know of that time period, this looks like an authentic picture. Well, there was one, the camera had a thing where you could, and it was a film camera. It was, like I said, it was back in the 60s. It was not a digital camera. Well, he took his family for a picnic, and I think you can look it up. It's called the Solway Firth photo. And with a flick of a button, the camera would snap like 3 instant pictures. And I think the theory behind it was, well, you always get that person that blinks, or, like, especially kids. They do that thing at the wrong moment and your photo's ruined. Well, this one would very quickly take 3 photos. And so you had a pretty good shot of one of them being something you'd want to keep, is my thinking on it, but that's just my opinion. And what happened was, hang on, just with my memory, I don't want to get it. I don't want to get something wrong, because there's some stuff you might want to check out that I was watching in the last week or so. Wasn't feeling good. I figured I'd watch some stuff. And but anyways, when he took this picture, what he found was that in the middle picture of his daughter, not the first, not the last, but the second picture in the middle, there was what looked like a guy in a spacesuit standing behind his daughter. And none of them remember seeing it. Not his wife, not him. The daughter was standing in front of him, so she clearly didn't see him. And my understanding is, I think the film company, somebody offered money if anybody would ever debunk it. And the last I heard, to this date, nobody has collected, not even Mick West. And if I'm hearing that wrong, then, hey, sorry. But Mick West looked at it, and to me, he looks, and I could be wrong. This is just an opinion more than anything, but some of his answers just don't make any sense. They look like he's desperate to find a reason to debunk it, and he just doesn't care. That's an opinion, and again, I'm not telling you, I don't take my word for it. Go check the guy out, and if you believe him, that's what's important. You don't have to believe me if this is something that believes in you. But he made something that the reason it was the mom, and there's other pictures that have been released. You don't always see them, but they have been released where there's other pictures he took that day. And you had the wife, the mom. She was in a dress and some other stuff. And he said, oh, she got bleached out. Well, what's funny is the mask of the spaceman, what looks like the mask, is dark. So in my opinion, when you look at it, and the proof is out there, it's from last season. You can even go watch the episode. I highly recommend you do that. But when you watch it, it magically bleached out everything about the mom except for her hair. It made that darker in a select spot, not the whole hair, just pieces of it, to make it look like a visor of a spacesuit. And then he made a claim that, and this actually, I'm not going to say it's total shit, but it's not a guarantee. You know, it's not one of those things where when you see it, in my opinion, you're going to be, case closed, Mick nailed it, you know, and it's like, no, but he's like, well, the way the arms are bent. And the other thing is, when you see the mom is not some big burly woman, you know, looks like a Russian, you know, meat butcher. She's pretty slender, pretty attractive. So in my mind, the picture, it's just too big to be her. And, you know, there's just, but, you know, the big thing is, somehow magically it bleached out the mom, not in a circle, not in an oval, but right around the figure of the mom. It didn't bleach out any of the grass, it didn't bleach out the daughter, and somehow magically, it didn't bleach out the hair, it made the hair darker. And then the other thing is, when you look at the mom, she was not wearing like a full body dress. She had a dress that came down to like the elbows or mid arm, and you're not seeing any type of texture change when it goes from the dress to the bare arms. There's no color change. So to me, the whole thing is just bullshit. But again, you know, you go check it out. And if you don't get time to check it out and you just leave it up there, you don't have to believe me. You go check it out and you make but the one thing I will say is, there have always, you can go back to the 50s and the 60s, and this is going to be relevant to some of the stuff I want to talk about. I saw some really good videos in the last week or so. And to me, I've been kind of paying attention to this for a while, and I saw some videos that I thought were really, really good. But you can go back to the 50s and 60s, the 40s, and there's always been people that want to debunk it.
A vicious strike.
And, you know, and again, this is a thing, I firmly believe it. There's certain cases I believe they're true. And like when you talk about the Roswell, New Mexico crash, where, you know, I believe that one because the Army told us. You know, and there's some corroborating evidence. Like there's a pilot, Arnold was either his first name or last name, I think. He saw these, he saw like a formation of flying saucers like a week or a few days before Roswell, New Mexico. And he said they were flying like saucers skipping over the water, but they were more like a wing. They did not look like saucers. And that is where the flying saucer came from. But when you actually look into it, he basically described them as something that was like a wing shape. You know, roundish in front. They tapered to the sides to points, and then they had this zigzag going across the back. That's how he described them, or at least how they were drawn from his description. And so, I mean, there's things there. And then you got the eyewitnesses. You got the people. Oh, I forgot to grab this on the other one. Okay, my bad. And, but I believe the Roswell, New Mexico one because I think it's more likely that they would have come out with the fake story second. Or they would have just kept their mouths shut until they had a fake story developed. Roswell, New Mexico, they found that thing, and they initially, and this drove me nuts. One of the ones I was watching, this one was not so good, and I can't remember who did it. I don't want to bad because I don't think they did it on purpose. But they were talking about the Roswell, New Mexico. The Army officially said that it was a weather balloon at first. No, they didn't. It was like a day or two later. What happened was when that thing crashed, The intelligence officer, Marcel, he went and looked at it. He reported to his boss, the general of the base, and I can't remember what his name was. Look him up. These things are there. And they issued a press release from the base. This was not Jesse Marcel running with his tongue out to the fucking radio or the newspaper. He basically took stuff back. According to the stories, he took debris back. He stopped and showed it to his family first, but he took stuff back to the base. They looked it over, and they issued a report that, you know, they had, and I think the headline of the story was U.S. Army recovers flying disc. I believe that was the initial story. That is what they initially released. And then what happened was Eisenhower, and I think this guy's name, and I might be wrong, this guy might be the base commander. I'm a little lightheaded today. I'm having a better day than I've had in a few days, so and I kind of want to do this. I'm not in a bad mood. If I was in a bad mood, I probably wouldn't stream. And if I get into a bad mood, I will do my level best to cancel. But I think President Eisenhower, at least this is the theory, sent, I think it's General Ramsey down there, or Ramey, started with an R. And he took a look at things, and then the next thing you know, there's a picture of Marcel looking like Dick of the Year, posing on the ground next to some tin foil or, you know, basically weather balloon debris. And he's got this look on his face, like if you work for a job where you have to do it, they tell you, like you know, like in military, it's one of them. You know, hey, we got secrets. We're gonna tell you what to say, and you're gonna go out there and lie your ass up. But he's sitting there looking at the general holding this shit, like you gotta be fucking kidding me. And you know, and then they're putting out the story that it was like a weather balloon that and here's the thing, this was the whole base was the only base at the time. They're the base that dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan, at the end of World War II. They were the only nuclear-equipped bomber division for the U.S., and you really got to ask yourself, do you think they had fucking morons there, or do you think they had the tip of the spear? You know, I kind of think they had the tip of the spear, and nobody was replaced. If you had some people that went out there and couldn't tell the difference between an alien spacecraft and a fucking wreckage from a fucking weather balloon, stuff that looked like it was about $5 or $10 worth of shit by today's dollars, I'm pretty sure they would have been transferred to the shittiest fucking post that you could imagine to get them the hell out of it. That's just my opinion. I think if you have a clear head, you would probably agree with me on that. Those are the facts as I understand it. You know, it was like there was another case, and again, there's some stuff I want to talk about that's going to go back, but there was another case, and this one here I kind of believe too. This was in the 50s too. And I can't remember if Truman was still president or if it had moved on to Eisenhower. But what they had was a bunch of unidentified, again, not aliens, not ET, but they had some unidentified flying objects show up on radar right near D.C. And they scrambled, and I wish I could remember the name of the jet but it was like they were just starting to put these in, but I think they were jets. And they scrambled them. Well, as soon as they got near, these things just disappeared. Sound a little bit like what they're doing now. Like when you hear those guys on the Nimitz, it's like, well, yeah, you know, it was there, and then the next minute it was 50 feet off the ground, and then the next minute it was gone. It just poof was gone. Well, that's the way this shit was. And it happened several times that night. And they kept scrambling fighters. Well, and they had their people, you know, I don't really, you know, the ones that I personally see as the people, the Mick Wests of today, but they had these people that said, oh, well, it was swamp gas or a flock of birds or something like that. And I've heard people say that even, you know, yeah, back then, but they said that these things showed up on radar as solid hard
I don't know how we're
objects.
supposed to survive.
They did not
Maybe we're
show
not.
up as
It's so
gas
beautiful here.
or birds.
Maybe if I hid in the trees,
and they
wouldn't
said
notice
that
I was gone.
if you had radar operators that couldn't do better than that, they would no longer. They might. Well, I've heard them say that they wouldn't be radar operators anymore.
Not
But even
enough
if they
spirit.
were, they would not be running the radar at Washington, D.C., where the president and Congress is. It just wouldn't have happened. And it was kind of the same thing I've heard say about, about the air Army people in Roswell, that if they had been that incompetent, and if it had been true, those people would have been gone. And, so that I believe that one. And then another one that I believe it's, I want to get the Rendlesham Forest. There is a military base in England, and I've heard this say this is England's Roswell. And this one I think happened in the 80s. I might be wrong, but I think it happened in the 80s. And what they had was this happened over multiple days. My understanding, like if you hear it, a lot of the times when you hear it, they only talk about one day, but this is something that happened over multiple days. They had, I think, an unidentified flying object. I think they had a case where they knew it had appeared to have landed. And then what happened is a couple days later, and I believe it was just different personnel that were dealing with it, a day or two later, it was either the next day or a couple days later, and I really wish I could remember this guy's name. He was one of the deputy base commanders, and I think he was either a full colonel or a lieutenant colonel, and he went out with a recording device with his men. And it wasn't like modern day ones. Like what he would do is he would record a little snippet, and then he'd shut it off and save the battery, save the tape, because it wasn't digital. I believe it was cassette. So he actually had notes of this thing. And then there's another, whether you believe it or not, one of the guys made contact with the alien craft. They basically say, yeah, we found a craft. There was all these hieroglyphs or runes or something written on it. It was in a language they didn't understand. And what happened was he'd always had this thing going through his head, and it was a little bit after this. He's not a computer guy. He was a security guard. He started writing down. All he was doing was writing down ones and zeros, but something was bugging him. And then when he finally wrote down all these ones and zeros, and it was pages of it in a little notebook, when he got done, he seemed at peace, he said. And what happened was he eventually let someone else see it. He kept it secret. So if this is something he was planning, he'd have done it a lot sooner. But he kept it secret, and he let somebody see it who had like a computer background. They go, God, that looks like binary. And so he put it into a computer, and it comes out and it's not perfect, but it comes off like if you've ever listened to somebody that speaks another language try to speak English, you understand what they're saying, but it's a little broken, it's not clear. And it basically says, exploration for the continuation of humanity, and it gives like one or two what appear to be map coordinates. And I can't remember what the other one is, but one of them, there are maps for this. There are old maps that show an island in the ocean near England and Ireland that's no longer there, but there are maps that show it as an island. It's on the map, so somebody thought it was there, and that was one of the coordinates they were given. And then and the thing that got me was, and I sort of believed it a little bit before that because it just seemed credible. But the thing that got me, and I watched, now this was an old documentary, but I only recently saw it in the last couple of years. It was on Pluto TV's. It's free. If you got internet, you can watch it for free. But it's their paranormal channel. Look for it. I can't give you the number on it. I don't know. But It was this guy who had been, I think, the Minister of Defense back in the 70s. And I've seen him, I think, on two different, I think it's him, on two different occasions. And it looked like an older one. It didn't, I mean, he was pretty old then, but it looked like it was made back then. It didn't look like it was brand new, but I recently saw it. And he just made the comment, he goes, well, you know, he was asked about it. He goes, well, I only know what's publicly available because I have no secret information. He goes, that was after my time. And he goes, no matter what it is, I would not have been kept in the loop on that. You know, and he was just completely honest about it. But he made the comment, he goes, I can see only one of two possibilities. And he goes, and I could see either one of them being true. He goes, I really don't know. But he goes, either it's true and you had something that appeared to be otherworldly tramping around in the forest near that base. He goes, or you had multiple days where most, if not all of the staff on the base, definitely all of the security staff, had a shared hallucination. And he goes, when you are talking about a joint base that had nuclear weapons on it, he goes, I would say that either one of those was a bad thing and should have been investigated. And this is something that I never heard. And this one looked newer, but they were talking to that deputy commander, that deputy base commander who had recorded notes while he was talking to somebody else that was either on his level or outranked. He might have been the same rank but was senior or something like that. And
I don't have enough spirit.
But he found out that he had those recordings of his notes for what was going on, and he said he wanted to show them to the base commander, the general. And he thought, oh, here goes my career. Well, from what he heard, the guy took it, he played it for the base commander, the general, and his senior staff. And what happened was the base commander goes, okay, so what you're saying, and this to me is like, I was never in the military, but I got a lot of friends that were in this action. When you hear stories of the military, this makes absolute sense. The guy goes, so it happened off base. You know, and he wanted to be, he goes, I need to know before I say anything. He goes, you're saying this happened off base? And they said, yes, it happened in the forest. He goes, well, it's a civilian matter, then case closed. So he was basically looking for an excuse to not have to dive into it. And and courts do the same thing. Like, they could have a serious case before them. And usually, even if it's important, even if maybe they should get to the bottom of it, if they can find that the thing doesn't have standing or if it doesn't have jurisdiction, they will kick it and make it. It's like a game of hot potato. They will make that somebody else's problem, and that's the way that general was. He's like, oh, if it happened off base, it's a civilian matter. None of my business. You know, case closed. Let's move on. Next. And but when that former Ministry of Defense made that comment, I kind of am a little more on the side of let's believe it, because he made a good point. Either it's true, which they should have gotten to the bottom of it, or you had a large number, if not the full base staff, had a shared delusion. They lost their fucking mind, and they should have been replaced, which they weren't. And they should have investigated. The fact that they didn't investigate it is an indication that they knew it was real. They didn't want to know what it is, and they just sort of wrote the whole thing off. So that one there, I kind of believe. And then normally I'd have my feet up, and eventually I will have my feet up. But I got my feet flatly on the ground, and I'm just and they're fine. They feel really, really good. But I just want to make sure that my foot gets stretched out in this position. And I've been having, now when I go out I still wear my boot. I'm supposed to be transitioning to where I walk in my shoes, so I have my shoes on right now, and I still can't really put full weight on them, but I can put weight on them. When I'm in the boot, I can put full weight on them just about. but I'm still wobbly as shit when I'm walking around, so I'm still using the walker. But when I go outside, I put the boot on, and then if I fall or anything else, it's better protected. I want this to heal. I do not want to, I don't want to take her. I'd rather wait a little bit longer and be back on my feet than do something stupid and have it get injured and have to go through this shit for another 8 weeks or whatever.
For its water.
And
Then came the mysterious
but no, the
offering Chaldeum an oasis of unparalleled splendor.
so anyways,
located in an
to
area
move on,
I don't have enough
and
space.
if I'm streaming
asking
long enough, I
only
would
that
like
his
to
name
talk
be
about
permanently
the
affixed to the land.
I would like to talk about
vanished
Skinwalker
into
Ranch.
the wastes.
Consider me your Skinwalker Ranch if I make it that far, because they don't have a new episode on tonight. I might actually watch, I might get the History app and watch a few of them later when I'm laying down. And, oh, while I'm at it, I'm lucky enough to be able to watch Netflix right now. And I still got like a couple episodes. It's Fubar with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I really enjoyed that, but I took a break from that. I was watching Blacklist, and I gotta be honest with you, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm not upsetting anybody, but if you are watching the show or want to watch the show, just zone out for a few minutes. I don't want to give any spoilers, and I don't know what season it is, but it's a season where Liz got killed. And I found her to be a very, very attractive person, and I found her to be like a really good actress. And I liked her on the show, so I really felt betrayed when they killed her off. I gotta give them respect, because they had sort of built it up. She's the one person that could not die. It looked like he was dying. And so that, but I felt that, like, I really felt that, so I haven't watched it since. And I might finish watching it, I don't know, but I really didn't like it when she got killed off. And I want to say it was like 7, 8, or 7, 9. 7 or 8 was the season, but it's the one where she gets killed. That really hit me. I didn't like it. I didn't really want to see Eddington go either, but it really looked like they were building it up for her to take over his empire and run it. And I really felt bad. I didn't like that. Let's just leave it at that. And I started watching Devil in Ohio, I think is the name of it. And that's got, it's, I can't remember what her first name is, but it's Zoe Deschanel's, and if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. It's, I think, Zoe Deschanel's sister that was the star of Bones. And I'm maybe halfway or approaching halfway through it. That is really good. That is really, really good. Okay. Okay. Give me a second. And that one there, and the only thing I just want, and this is the only reason I'm doing, I want to just put this out there. I am trying to find a way to complain to Netflix, because I didn't watch it for a while, because I always liked her on Bones, and I got to be honest with you, and this has nothing to do with why I didn't watch it. And I am putting this out there as kind of a testament to how good of an actress she is. My brother said she wasn't as good in the pilot, but after the pilot, she got... I, honest to God, always thought she was a little bit on the spectrum. I didn't know how much, but I always thought that she was just a little bit on the autism spectrum because of her character on Bones. And I don't know if he is either. I really don't. But like, it's and don't, I might have the name of the show wrong, and if for that I apologize. But it's oh God, if I'm not mistaken, he's the kid that was in August Rush, that little music genius or whatever. And then I think he grew up and they had a show where he was like an autistic doctor. And every indication he's like a really good actor. I think he's on the spectrum. I think he's autistic. I could be wrong. I could absolutely, but he comes off as believable. So I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm not trying to piss anybody off. I'm just trying to give him credit for his acting ability and hers. Well, I'm watching this Devil in Ohio, and I just had one of those oh shit moments like the first 5 minutes, and I'm like, oh my God, she was such a good actress. I actually thought she was just a touch autistic, but she's like completely normal in this. And I was like, just, oh my God. And but the thing is, I didn't watch it for a while because they got a thumbnail of her in the menu for Netflix. And I'm thinking, okay, she hasn't been on Bones for a couple years. She still looked okay. I don't mean it that way, but I'm like, she really, she's gotten old. She's lost a bit, because the thumbnail they had. All I can say is it must have been just taken at that moment where her mouth was open, her eyes were screwed up, but it just didn't look as attractive as she had in Bones. And then I'm watching it, and again, it was like an oh shit moment about 20-30 minutes into it. I'm watching, I'm like, she's older, there's some changes, but I think on some levels, I think she's in some cases more attractive than when she was on Bones. And I'm just like, and it's like, if you guys want to help out, do a letter writing campaign to Netflix to replace that goddamn thumbnail. That is just a disservice to someone that I think is a very attractive actor. I mean, they don't have to put something slutty on there, but my God, I'm watching it and I'm just not seeing it when she's moving around, when she's acting. Maybe it's one of those things they just can't capture her in a still image. That's entirely possible. And but I'm just like, my God, she's way more attractive across the board than she is in this thumbnail. They got to get rid of that. I'm sorry. That's wrong. So yeah, if you see this, please find a way to contact Netflix and see if you can get them to change that thumbnail of Devil in Ohio and get Deschanel a better image. That's all I'm asking, Something classy, something tasteful, but something that looks as good as she does in that show might actually help them get people to watch it. Because she definitely looks a lot better in the show, and she didn't look bad. I don't want to, don't like, if this does get up on YouTube, don't hate me on YouTube. Oh, she looks fine. I'm not saying she doesn't look fine. I'm just saying that picture is not showing her best side. That's all I'm saying. It looks fine, but from my watching of the first 4 or 5 episodes, they could do a lot better.
Break beneath the endless tide.
And, well, anyways, to get back to the story, this last couple weeks, and if you look it up on Google, because what happens is I type in "need to know," and he actually said it. He did an interview on the Theory of Everything podcast, which you can watch on YouTube. The guy's got like 2 advanced degrees. One of them is in something to do with mathematics, and I can't remember if the other one's is on mathematics or if it's on physics or something like that. But he's got a couple different degrees, and he interviewed Ross Coulthart. He's spelled just like my last name, except for there's a T at the end instead of a D. And what happened was he did this interview, and that was pretty good. So you go check that out. Well, the other thing is, one of the things that he did, and he does this podcast. This guy is an Australian
That
journalist
ability is not
who
yet
has
recharged.
worked with 60 Minutes Australia, and I don't know if this means anything, but like News 7 Australia, He's also over here working with Americans. He's like an international journalist because he does stuff in America, he does in Australia, and I think he's elsewhere too. And he actually gets reached out by a lot of people. Well, he did an interview, and I believe, if I'm wrong, I apologize. I think it was for News Nation. He did an interview with a former veteran, a former military guy, current veteran, former intelligence officer for the U.S., who is now turning whistleblower. And he did an interview with the guy, and I mean, seriously, try and find it if you care about the subject and you haven't seen it. And I think the guy's name is David Grouch or something like that. And I want to tease this a little bit, and I'm gonna mention some of the claims he makes. And the thing is, I believe it's when he was on the Theory of Everything. He goes, and I'm paraphrasing. I might be adding to this to explain it a little better than what he did, which he generally doesn't need. But for me. He goes, if you go back and look at when Lou Elizondo came forward, they lied about him and they trashed him. They attacked him. This is a guy that came out and said, yeah, I was running this UFO task force, and they lied.
Would you like some company?
And then what happened was Senator Harry Reid, before he died, he came out and he said, look, that was my program. I'm the one that got it passed. I'm the one that funded it. Yes, he was running that program. Yes, he was, investigating UFOs because his committee or his group reported to me. Yes, he did this. Because anybody that says anything else, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, anybody that says anything else is just not telling you the truth. So he came to his rescue. And there's still people out there that are, oh yeah, well he didn't do this and he didn't. Well, the senator that ran the program, the senator that wrote the bill that put that program into action, former leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate, he came out and said no, he ran it. He was investigating UFOs. That's the truth. Anybody tells you something different, it's a lie. And my understanding, and he won't talk about this stuff, I've heard rumors that he might have been a remote viewer back in the day, and this is something else I learned recently. There is a guy, I believe his name is John Anderson. He was a colonel in the military, and he worked with a lot of these programs. He was like the guy that ran the investigation team on Skinwalker Ranch when Bigelow owned it. And this is all old news to me, but he was talking to the current Skinwalker Ranch people, and they go, oh yeah, you were like one of the first ones he brought to the ranch, and he goes, I was with him the day he bought it, and then I heard today that he slept on the ranch that first night, like when he bought it, when the paperwork was all done, he slept on the ranch the first night.
Has changed.
This colonel.
First,
and they also said that,
in Chaldeum,
yeah, he was involved in these programs, but he ran them.
In Ariat
like the remote viewing thing. They go, if you watch that
shook
movie,
the
The Men Who
seven
Stare at
hells.
Goats, I
They
think
were
they said
merely a
Kevin
harbinger
Spacey's
for the
character
return
was
of
modeled
Diablo
after him.
as
Now,
the
it's one of those
prime
things I
evil.
think where they can tell you more truth with a fiction, with a
unmatched.
fantasy story than they can with a true story.
and the
Because
angel of
because
death
this was Richard Clark.
Who
He was
could
the
have done
whistleblower
this?
for 9/11. He was the one who came forward and said, well, look, the government's lying to you about 9/11. Here's what happened. Well, he wrote some stories, and I saw him, I think, on Jon Stewart's show. And Jon Stewart found out that he was writing like a fantasy story, a fiction story. And he goes, man, with your background, he goes, why are you writing a story that isn't true? Why don't you write a true story? And he goes, well, with my security clearances, he goes, I can tell more. He's the one who wrote the movie Syriana, he wrote the book that Syriana was based on. It's a George Clooney movie. I think he was, I might be wrong. Actually, I'm wrong. That was a different guy. But he basically told him, he goes, I think he was the one. I might be mixing up with the guy that did the book Syriana, the Syriana movie was based on. But the guy basically said, he goes, look, I can tell more true stuff with a fantasy story than I can if I got to get clearances for everything. Because there was one case, and I think this was over the Valerie plane thing. There was something that was in the congressional record. It was something that had been mentioned at Congress, not by her or not by whoever we're talking about. But it was something that had made it. It had been entered in the congressional record, and they wanted to use it in this book they were writing. And the intelligence group said, no, you can't put that in your book. And they go, it's part of the congressional record. It can't be classified anymore. It's literally on the congressional record. They still were not allowed to do it. And but yeah, but the thing that kind of got me, because I've seen that John Anderson on the Skinwalker Ranch a couple times, but when they said he ran that remote viewing thing and that Kevin Spacey's character was, I might watch that movie again if I can find a copy, or if it's online somewhere I can watch it for free. But they said Kevin Spacey's character was modeled after him when they wrote that movie. I'm just like, oh my god. But anyways, what they were talking about, if I can get not too sidetracked here. Well, yeah, anyway, so Ross Coulthart, we'll get away from him, but go check it out. It's The Theory of Everything. Follow him on YouTube, or follow him on Twitter, and go check out that video on. It was a really good interview. I watched all of that one, and then also he's been leaking stuff, like he talked about, and that was the one thing I kind of wanted. I'm getting back to. I remember what I was saying, but he interviewed this David Grouch. And I'm probably pronouncing the name wrong, and I apologize for that. But he just said, he goes, they attacked Lou Elizondo almost instantly. He goes, his story has been out for a couple weeks now, and he goes, they have not attacked him yet. And I think it was him. It was either him or it was somebody. Cause Need to Know, and if you look it up, you want to do Need to Know, and then you want to type in COULTHART, and then it will take you to you can find their Twitter page real easy that way, and you can find their channel, because if you just type in Need to Know, there is a band or some songs that will come up ahead of his, and if you put his name in it, you could probably do Zabel, Z-A-B-E-L. He's the American reporter in that dynamic duo. Either one, I know the Coulthart one will do it. Zabel might do it too, but that will bring the page up instantly. Go watch some of their stuff if you haven't found them yet. They do good reporting. Like one of the things, and this is the guy, Zabel, he's brought this up in recent interviews, and he goes, the government's clearly lying to us, because he said they shot down a Chinese spy balloon, something that should have been high-tech and secret and all this, and they instantly showed us what it looked like. They showed us images of them shooting it down, so we got to see it flying. They showed us the wreckage. And he goes, and then they shot something else down, and we have not yet, to this day, seen any images of it. We haven't seen any images of it, and we haven't seen the debris. And again, I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody reached out to them, I think, and they said, yeah, I live in the area, and I'm roughly where this thing might have come down. And he goes, I can tell you, there has been nobody, because, oh yeah, we'll get the debris and we'll do this. And he's like, yeah, there's nobody coming out here looking for that debris. Because they initially said, well, yeah, we'll get to the bottom of it, we'll find that. And then it was like a week later or less. And they said, yeah, we're probably not going to. Well, according to this guy, he's out there in the area. He goes, nobody's out here. They're just not looking. It could be bullshit. I really don't know. But if it's true,
I need spirits.
Then, and this is where I think he's got a point. Like, hey, if that was really nothing, if it was just another weather balloon, even a China one, they would have shown us the footage by now. So that's another one that I kind of believe. And then, so they got that going on. And then there has been a ton of video footage from the Hill, and there's a lot of video footage from the Hill, and I'm going to probably piss some people off, and I'm just being, I got to keep it real. Understand, and I'm not on pain pills anymore, but I'm still feeling some discomfort. I might not be sleeping great. But the Hill, and then the other one I think is called News Nation. They have been running a lot of interviews. Like they had, one of them did an interview with Robert Kennedy Jr. And I can't really, and I don't like the guy. I think he's gone nuts. I don't think he should be elected for dog catcher, just an opinion. But to be honest, I don't know that I blame him for this. UFOs and stuff are kind of like a third rail of politics. And they asked him about UFOs, and he immediately turned it around on them. Well, you tell me. I don't know anything about it. He didn't want to talk about it. Well, I got to be honest with you. That's a sign of intelligence, because this happened to Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich, I don't think he's nuts like RFK, but he's another one. I really wouldn't want to see him elected to president, but I think he's okay in the Senate. I consider him like the liberal version of Ron Paul. Not Rand Paul, but the dad. He's someone that is really, really good on a couple issues, but on a lot of them, he comes off as nuts. Well, during one of the presidential debates he ran for, I don't know, but they claim that Shirley MacLaine, if I got the names right, it was an actress. He's friends with her, and he apparently saw a UFO at her house. And they said, well, yeah, she said you saw a UFO at her house, and they asked, wow, that pretty much killed his presidential dreams right then and there. He was pretty much a done deal the next day. It was gone. And other people,
I need spirit.
And there's some that say that there were people who didn't want Hillary as president inside the government because they were afraid she was going to get in and declassify stuff. So they said there might have been a put, and again, these I think might be conspiracy theories, but you never know. But they might have been worried that she would go further than her husband did and actually start to open up about stuff. And that's how we got. But again, I think there's other stuff, but that could have been. Maybe that contributed to why they wanted Trump in there. Maybe Russia was worried she was going to tell the truth. And he wanted Trump in there and not Hillary. I don't know. I follow the stories. That there is something that I can't confirm one way or the other, but it might be reasonable. I really don't know. And
your strength fails.
I'll have to quit talking when I get to the boss here. But so they've been doing these interviews. Well, like I said, News Nation is the one, because that was the thing when he was doing like a video for his own channel, and Ross Coulthart was just dead serious. He goes, hey, look, he goes, there's a lot of conspiracy theories going on about why we haven't shown the full interview I did. He goes, I want to be clear, and he goes, I want everybody to take this to heart. He goes, News Nation paid for the camera crew. They paid for the processing. They basically paid for everything. All he had to do was come in and interview David Grush. And he goes, I would honestly really like to work with them again. He goes, I think they were great. I think they did a good job. They were very professional. He goes, and if the opportunity comes up, he goes, I would love to work with them again. So he goes, if you are a fan of me, please quit attacking them. Stop this nonsense. He goes, here's the thing. They paid for everything. He goes, they have copyright rights to it. He goes, I can take clips of it. I'm well within my First Amendment rights to free use, to do clips. But he goes, I cannot show large amounts of that interview. I just can't. He goes, and they have, he goes, with the money they spent, he goes, they are well within their rights to do this. He goes, I'm glad they're doing it. Because again, Because if they make some money on this, if they have good luck with this, he goes, it's just going to increase the chances that they're willing to do something like this again with me. And he goes, so please stop. And but they have shown clips from that David Grouch. And if I got the name wrong, I apologize. And what it is, he has flat out said that there was a UFO retrieval program. And I mean, he flat out admitted that yes, we are in possession of many down traps. And then somebody else, according to Mark Rubio, there have been other people from the intelligence community that have come forward and corroborated what Grouch has said. And but there are many people that have come forward and the one thing I will say though is there is a guy named Bob Lazar, and he took a lot of shit for it. But he came out, I believe, in the 90s. It was either late 80s or in the 90s. It might have been like right before, right after I graduated high school. I can't remember. I graduated in the summer of 88. But it was either right before, it was either the last year I was in high school or it was like a year or two after high school. And, but he basically said that he worked on a UFO. He was trying to reverse engineer like the propulsion system for the government. And again, I don't really want to spend a lot of time on it because it's an old story and there hasn't really been anything new on him. But I would say that what Grouch said and others have said is a confirmation of what he said, because he said he saw 10 different craft. And this was 30 years ago. He saw like 10 different craft. And they're being reported that another whistleblower has come forward and said there were 12. So maybe he didn't see everything, and maybe they found one or two more since then.
Not enough spirit. I must wait to use that ability.
And I'm gonna do my best, but I might not be as talkative until this look. I really don't want to lose my hardcore character. It might be safe, but I've done this before where I thought it was safe and I wasn't paying attention. Next thing I know, I'm at that death screen where they're like, "Hey, thanks for playing hardcore. You can start a new character."
That ability is not yet recharged.
But, and then I don't know if it was the need to know guys. I really don't know if it was the need to know guys or if it was somebody else. But, they said that, because they were talking about David Grouch, and the way I understood it, and if I got this wrong, I'm not an expert on this, but if I got this wrong, I'm not sure I can blame this on having, health issues and being a little unclear-headed. It might just be that this is not something I've had enough of an experience with to tell the story intelligently. But my understanding, if I'm not wrong, is what happened was, and I think this might be stuff that was put in place by Senator Gillibrand and Mark Rubio. Those two are, and I don't really have a lot of respect for Mark Rubio, but he really seems to be a good guy on this. And I just gotta say, this guy's a lifelong politician, and I don't think he would be doing this if he wasn't sure that this thing was credible. Give me a second, I gotta go to the bathroom. Mic check, mic check. How's everybody doing?
The world is... You have finished all the...
I don't think they do it anymore, but I think if you go back to the first and maybe second Diablo, you wanted to do it this way because I think some stuff was cursed, or I think some stuff was cursed. They got rid of that. I got 2 of them. But they So let me think about where we were. Yeah, so they've been doing these things, and of the 2, and again, this is one of those things I'm not trying to tell you how to feel, but I just don't know. I think the Hill is a slightly... I trust them a little bit more. The News Nation one, I don't know. They might be real news, and I gotta say, for the UFO thing, I think that those 2 are covering it better than a lot of mainstream news. I'm going to give them credit for that. Like, they haven't done it since, but I know when some of this stuff broke, Ari Melber, and he might be friends with the guy, I don't know, but Ari Melber would bring on that Neil deGrasse Tyson guy, and he's an astronomer. He's got a couple different degrees, but this is a guy that doesn't really, like, if you want to know about why the moon reacts the way it does, if you want to know about stellar mass or black holes, if you want to know about an exploding supernova, he's your guy. He really is. But he's not a propulsion expert. He's not a language expert. He's not a behavioral expert. There are many, many things that he is just not qualified. I can't think of anything that he's gone to school for that makes him credible to talk about UFOs in any way, shape, or form. And he doesn't do the work. And I finally got on him, and I haven't seen him bring the guy on since. But I tweeted out to him, I go, hey, look, I go, if he actually put the work in, I go, I firmly believe that unless the aliens come and pick him up and run some tests on his anus, Neil deGrasse Tyson is never going to say, oh, I think aliens are real. They're going to have to fucking pick him up and play with his butt before he's willing to say, yes, they're real. Please take the thing out of my butt now. And I firmly believe that. I really firmly believe that. And I go, if he actually put the work into it, he could be the next Stanton Freeman. Because I go, he's clearly got an excellent mind. But I go, and I see this a lot. You get people that were in the military, and they may be an expert on guard duty, or they might be an expert on cleaning a rifle. They might be an expert on tracking someone through the desert and putting a fucking bullet in their head. But they don't know a damn thing about foreign policy. They don't know a damn thing about domestic policy. And, I got a brother that does this. And they want to just go off about stuff that when you listen to them, they clearly don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But yet they're used to being in the military where people of a lesser rank have to listen to them even when they're a fucking idiot about something. And I go, this is what he appears to be doing. I go, he doesn't know anything about this. you're enabling him by bringing him on and letting him talk like an expert. But I go, he's really not helping. I go, he doesn't know anything about this. Instead of coming on here, he should be listening to people. I go, now if he wanted to go out like George Knapp or Stanton Freeman used to, or if he wants to go out like Jeremy Corbell or Lou Elizondo and actually get to the bottom of stuff, he could be a damn asset to this. But right now, he's just not credible. And nobody, and especially a news organization, should not be treating him like he is credible. But, so anyways, hang on. Okay. So we want to go to number 5. And but they've been doing a lot. And the only thing I want to say, and I'm probably going to piss some people, I don't mean it in a bad way, but I sort of knew about the Hill from the past, because they used to have now if I'm not mistaken, I think she was temporarily on MSNBC. She's kind of, I mean, I'm a fairly progressive guy. She's a little bit, I don't know, I might be wrong in this, but I think if you were to opinion that she might be a little to the left of AOC, I'm not sure that's necessarily true, but you wouldn't be crazy for saying it. She's fairly far left leaning, and I don't know if she's a true believer. She seems like it, but I don't know if she's a true believer or if she's just doing it because she wants to market herself that way. I don't know. But all I'm going to say is she is a very attractive woman. I'm being completely honest. I don't want to be mean. And I know this is probably disrespectful. I'm an older person. I'm a dinosaur. The sooner my generation die off, it's probably better for the world. But the adult film industry really lost out when she was born with a brain as functioning as hers, because she is just hot. She's hot. She's incredibly hot. And again, even if you don't agree with her, she's got one of those generational minds, and it's just sad. It really, because she's so fucking hot. And well, anyways, she used to be on there, and I think she was. And again, they're pretty progressive, but I think she was too. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know, but I got a feeling it's at least possible she was maybe too far left for them, or she was had issues that they, and it could be anything. I don't want to badmouth her because I really don't know, but I really liked. I mean, that was the main reason I watched it back then, because she was on it, and she's just really attractive. There was an episode of West Wing where Josh, the deputy chief of staff, had to meet with somebody from NASA, and he basically didn't want to do it. He was bitching about it. And, well, then he ended up finding out that the person he had to meet with was, like, really, really hot. And he met with her. And then his assistant, the one that took care of, she was his traffic coordinator, he started like, I'm going to go and I'm going to look at stars with her in a little portable telescope. And he goes, well, can't we go to an observatory? She goes, oh, you're not ready for that. You need to have the experience that high school kids are having in the football field or whatever. Well, Donna, at a point, she goes, you're only going out with her because you're only going with her to do this telescope thing because she's really incredibly hot. And he goes, this is one of many questions we're probably never going to get a straight answer to. And like, so I used to watch her a lot when she was, I watch it a lot less now that she ain't on it. But I mean, again, it wasn't just the fact that she was hot. There was a mind there. Even if you didn't agree with her, there was a thought process there. It made you want to think, and she's gone now. And The world is a sadder place. And, but she was, I don't know if she was running for office or her husband did, and I don't know if they're still married, I really don't. But her and her husband had gone to, I don't even want to know if they're sex parties, but they went to some parties. It was completely private. It's things adults do that are really nobody's business. Well, some asshole took pictures of it and leaked them. And it's kind of like that one girl, she actually made it to Congress, and I really wish she'd have toughed it out. But like, when you heard her talk about it, it's like, you know what, I don't know if I can blame her. But her husband, she was bisexual, and her husband was having sex with her and other women, and she was okay with it. Well, when that story leaked, it was like fucking open sea. I can't remember what her name is. I'm not from California. I don't vote there. But because she seemed like a really good Democrat to have in there. And it's like, oh my God, you know, this is shit. We got a guy that sexually assaults women. I mean, he admits it, the grab him in the pussy guy. And it's okay for him to run. And he's just been convicted of like sexual harassment or sexual assault. He didn't get nailed for rape, but he got nailed with a lesser charge. It's okay for the Republicans to have somebody like that in office, but you've got a woman that is having consensual sex with her husband and another woman. Oh my God, we can't have that. What'll the kids say? They'll say, well, they'll say like maybe she should run for president because she's not sexually assaulting people. You know, there's no evidence she was ever on Epstein's Island. I mean, it's like, you know, but there's some shit we just got to deal with, and that to me is just wrong. I don't know that I'm a big fan of it. I wouldn't want to be doing that shit. Well, if I was drinking, if I was still drinking, it might be a different story. But you know, I'm not saying that's my lifestyle. That's not my cup of tea. But I got to be honest with you. And you know, Liz Cheney's doing a little bit of this. I saw this in the last week or two. She made the comment that, you know, when she looks at it now, she can't think, well, okay, how am I on this issue or how am I on that issue? She goes, I can't think like that anymore. She goes, where I'm at now is I'm thinking we need to hire people that are serious.
That ability is not yet recharged.
Because I really think we need to hire people that are serious or elect people that are serious. She goes, we need to do that. Because she goes, I think the process we have now for my party is we're electing idiots. And she goes, we gotta elect some people that are serious. And she goes, and then once we purge the party of these people that are idiots, and she didn't mention name, but I would be willing to bet that she's talking about Lorena Bobbitt. I think she's talking to her Boebert, Bobblehead. I think she's talking about them. I think she's talking about Trump. I think she's talking about your Jim Jordans. I think she's talking about that Tuberville guy that's holding up. He's basically endangering national security because he won't let the military promote until they quit letting the military send women to get abortions if they're in a state where it's illegal. And I personally think the president should tell them, hey, we'll take care of that. What we'll do is we'll start moving military bases out of states that don't let women have equal rights. And then we won't have to do that. And that's how we'll fix your problem, dipshit. Otherwise, you get your fucking ass off the sidelines and let us promote our military. That to me would make a lot of sense. Just tell them, hey, we got this. We will just stop with this bullshit. Where we're going to let these Republicans fuck things up every time they, get a little fucking sand in their underwear and just move on. But well, anyways, so yeah, there's Grouch, and like he basically said that we've been recovering these. Some other, and from what it's being reported, if the reporting's wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm telling you what I'm hearing. That there's other intelligence people that have come by and said, well, yeah, we've got at least 12 of these. They're saying that people have died over this stuff, and we're keeping all this hidden from people. And then the other thing, hang on one second. I want to get this right. This is something like I've given you need to know. I've told you how to find it easy. I've also told you The Hill and I think News Nation, go and look for their UFO, UAP stuff. It's really good. And then the other one, I just saw this today and I've only watched like half of it. And it is, hang on. Okay, the YouTube channel is Julian Dorey, Juliandorey, and he was interviewing a guy that just did, I think he's got his own podcast, and I can't remember his name. I don't want to give you the wrong, but he's the guy that created the Accidental Truth documentary. And I watched this guy, and the first thing I'm going to tell you, this is what made me want to watch the rest of the podcast. And I think it's like an hour and a half or 3 hours long. It's a long podcast. Like when Ross Coulthart was on The Theory of Everything, that's another one. Go check that out. That Theory of Everything, he does a lot of different discussions on his podcast. I don't even know if half of them are UFO related, but the people that follow him like it, and he actually has an interest. He said repeatedly, I don't know that much about this. I'm trying to learn. But he's had Linda Moulton Howell on there. He's had Lou Elizondo on there twice. He's had Ross Coulthart twice. He's a really good one to check out. But this podcast I saw this morning, there's another one. I might have to look it up. I'll see if I can find it later if I don't forget. And then I'll get on to, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about one I forgot about when I was starting. But there's one other podcast I would like to talk about. And then I will start talking about the Skinwalker Ranch. And, but this podcast, the guy I would say is an older guy. He might be my age, give or take like 10 years. I want to say he's in his 40s to 60s would be my guess. Somewhere. I'm not gonna. I don't want to. I really don't know, but he seems like he's more in my age group, and maybe he's older and just looks younger. I don't know. But he did this podcast or this documentary, and he said, "Look, this is not." He goes, when I shot this, he goes, it is not shot like Ancient Aliens. It is not meant to be entertaining, and it's meant to be a documentary. And he said, if you are, he goes, for newer people, they might find the whole thing good. But if you watch it, he was kind of telling the podcaster, you know, if you are a UFOer, you're going to want to watch like the first third of it, the first quarter of it. And he goes, because that's all going to be old stuff. He goes, UFO people are probably not going to be surprised by the first quarter or the first third of it. He goes, the 3/4 at the end or the 2/3 at the end, he goes, that might shock people. He goes, there might be some trigger moments there where people are like, oh wow, I didn't know that. And so I might even check that out. I actually kind of, and they've got that on YouTube. It looks like you can watch his documentary on YouTube. You don't have to. It isn't like some of these where you got to go pay for it. It looks like this one you can watch for free on YouTube. And so I will be trying to check that out later. In case I'm wrong, I really shouldn't have said anything, because if it's bootlegged on YouTube, I'd kind of like to watch it before they flush it. But this is what got me, and it was at the very first part of this. So again, that Julian Dorey or whatever it is, he started talking, and they were talking about Einstein, and they were talking about when he was working on his everything theory. Apparently he was working on that I think I heard he was looking. No, it was Darwin that was doing that. I started thinking maybe he was the guy that was looking at earthworms. No, that was Darwin. But he was working on this everything theory. And he goes, well, yeah, you know, and then when he died and they went in to collect his things, he goes, it was like a madman. He just had all these fucking notes and equations and stuff on his desk. But it was his process. He was working on it, but he never finished it. And he said, and there's a lot of people that have been working on it now. Well, this is the part that really made me interested. And I don't know. I'm going to be completely honest. I really don't know. But this shocked me. But the thing is, like, what we're finding out about quantum physics now, and again, I'm not an expert on this, but the things you hear from the people that are, like your Neil deGrasse Tyson, there's this Japanese guy, I see him on Ancient Aliens a lot. I'm starting to see him on some of these interviews with on like The Hill and or News Nation. I'm seeing him, and I can't get his name, but he doesn't have that much of an accent. He might be American born, but he's an old white-haired Japanese guy. And I don't think he has, I think he's got an American accent. But again, I don't know, maybe he's from Japan, but I don't detect an accent. And he's interesting to listen to. He really is. And but anyways, he started talking that, you know, he's done his own research, and he said, from what I've been, he goes, and I'm not a scientist, and I think he was mentioning this Japanese scientist, and I wish I could think of his name, Hakori or something like that is his last name, I think, and, but he goes, I don't want to step on his toes, but I have done some research, and he goes, my understanding on this research is that I don't think it would have been possible for Einstein, as smart as he was, to figure it out, because he said they have proven that physics cheats when it wants to get something done. And the guy who was hosting the show, this Julian guy, he got kind of a funny look on his face. He goes, I think I might know what you're talking about, but in case I'm wrong, would you please explain that? And the guy goes, oh yeah, absolutely. I was gonna ask if you wanted me to. And he said, there are things that they know that happen. They physically know that happen, but he goes, physically they shouldn't happen. And like, I can give you one example, and I know this from watching Doctor Who. They were telling, this was Tom Baker's Doctor Who, and somebody was telling his Doctor Who that something was impossible. It might have been Brigadier General. And he goes, Bumblebee. And they go, what? He goes, and as far as I know, it's true. He goes, it's aerodynamically impossible as we know it for a bumblebee to fly, but they do it all the time. And what he said was that scientists have proven this, and this is the part I really don't know. I'm not going to shit on them because I don't know either way, and I do know enough about quantum physics from listening to people talk. I don't know it. I couldn't do the most simplest quantum physics thing, but when you listen to the experts, there's weird shit that happens when you get down to the quantum level. And I mean, you know, this was, I sort of heard this before Ant-Man was ever made into a movie, so it isn't that. But the way he was talking, scientists have proven this, and he was calling it quantum photosynthesis or something. And he was saying that scientists could not figure out why, like, certain plants, and I'm going to go into depth on this because there's something I found interesting about this, and this was back when I was working and I was starting to lose my health, and for the life of me, it was a movie I watched on Prime, and I can't find it. I can't find the scientist, but there was a movie about trees, and it was completely low budget. The female scientist, she not only was the star of the movie, she was not only incredibly fucking attractive, but she's also the scientist that is working on the theory that the movie was based on. And I gotta tell you that when I heard this guy talking, the first thing, and this is something I hadn't been thinking about. It has not been in my mind. So like I said, I think I'm having a better day than I've had for a couple days. But it made me think of that movie. It just popped. And what he said was, scientists have proven this quantum photosynthesis. And what happens is, they found that certain plants, or maybe all plants, the photons hit the exact sweet spot in the roots or something like that. I don't know. I know a little bit about plants. I've never heard any of this. Because my understanding is the leaves are usually what need the sunlight. But he was talking about photons, and they literally go through things. They go through but they apparently do something at the root level. And what he said is they are finding now, they have proven this, that plants enter some kind of a quantum state, and they figure out what is the best place for the photons to hit, and they direct the photons to that spot. I don't know if that's true, but like, to me, this guy did not seem crazy. He did not seem dishonest, and he's saying they've proven it. So I don't know. I'm not going to call the guy a liar, because I just don't know, because there's been plenty of other stuff that has come out, and some of it I get from watching Skinwalker Ranch, and some of it I get from watching some of those Ancient Alien shows on the History Channel like that, Ancient Aliens, and some of the other ones they put up like UFO Hunters and other ones. They bring on experts, and when you listen to them, they're like, because I've heard it said that if you could actually build a quantum computer, you could break the simplest code, because it would change the dynamics of how code breaking is done to break a password. You could have the most secure password on there that would take like an army of supercomputers to go through in 100 years. And they said, well, you can break it in a couple minutes if you had a quantum computer. And so, like, when you hear these people talk about this stuff, I can't say it's shit. I literally cannot be a doubter on that. And, but yeah, but that was at the first, like, 20 minutes of the podcast, and I'm like, oh my God, this is weird. This is definitely interesting, but it's weird. Well, then the other thing he got talking about, because they got talking about, the disclosure, and they got talking about, like what's going on in the Senate and some of the other stuff. And the one thing he said was, he goes, you got to understand, because I think it was when they brought up Project Blue Book, because the thing you got to understand, and for anybody out there, please do not shut me out. If you're going to leave, don't leave because of this. Try to take it to heart, because the guy was making a lot of sense. He said there's a lot of people out there that are just convinced that we're going to get to the bottom of it, we're going to have disclosure, and he goes, here's the thing. And Ross Coulthart talked about this, I think it was either on his own show or it was when he was on Theory of Everything. But he mentioned that, for the people that think they're going to get disclosure, everything the way they want it, he goes, you guys might want to just take a breath and calm down and not get your hopes up. Because he said, here's the problem. He goes, my understanding inside Washington is there is bipartisan support for Congress to be fully briefed. He goes, there is not bipartisan support for the country to be fully briefed. So he goes, and until that changes, he goes, I am reasonably sure you're not going to see full disclosure. And he goes, I'm not trying to piss anybody off. And he goes, and I hope I'm wrong, but he goes, my understanding is that Congress has enough bipartisan support for Congress to be told the truth. And then this guy got talking about it. He said, well, and I don't think I'm getting it mixed up. Maybe I am. So you got to watch all of them. You can't just pick your favorite one I'm talking about. You really need to go and watch a bunch of them because I'm taking from all of them. I'm not talking about one podcast or one interview. I'm taking like about 10 of them that I've watched, and I'm not even remembering everything, but I'm taking stuff I got from at least 10 of them over the last week, and I'm doing my best to kind of break it down and give it to you. And, you know, and seriously, please don't take my word for it. Go figure it out for yourself. Come to your own decision. Kind of like Ironside in Starship Troopers. You know, doesn't matter what I believe. Go look at the truth. Go listen to the interviews, and hopefully you'll come to a good decision. And if not, but you'll own it. You know, you'll own it. Don't just follow me. Don't take my word for it. Go out and listen to people. Try to keep an open mind. And the thing is, you know, if you're someone that's going to go out there and just listen to what you want to hear, you're not doing yourself or anybody else any favors. We got enough of that in politics. You get a little bit of it on the left, and anymore you've gotten a lot of it on the right, where people are going out there and all they're doing is listening to what they want to hear. They're not listening to the truth. They're not listening to the facts. They hear a couple things, and a lot of the time they're not even hearing anything. They're manufacturing it in their head. But this guy in this interview, he said, well, you got to understand. He goes, my understanding of it is many people, maybe not everyone, but many people in Congress know they're being lied. They are positive they're being lied, and they're pissed. They are absolutely pissed. And this is something I want to point out. Like when you take this Grouch interview, and some of the, and like from what Rubio and others are saying, you know, that there are intelligence people other than Grouch that are coming forward and backing him up. And they're coming in and giving chapter and verse to Congress, and it is backing him up. They are bringing evidence into Congress. Like, I don't know if they probably be documentary evidence.
The storm breaks.
But they're bringing that in to Congress. Igor! Oh, Igor's gonna die real quick. I love that.
I need to go back.
But so that was his thing on it. But he goes, here's the thing you gotta understand. He goes, I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. He goes, I want people to take this to heart. And he goes, you know, and he goes, I hope I'm wrong. He was saying the same thing Ross was. He goes, I hope I'm wrong, but here's the thing. He goes, the stuff you're hearing nowadays, he goes, you can go back to the 50s, 80 years ago. You can go back to the 70s, 60 years ago, and you'll hear the same thing. He goes, you can go back after Roswell, New Mexico, and you can hear them say, oh, well, yeah, we're going to, you know, you could hear the government going, yep, it was the military. We're going to get to the bottom of this. No worry. We're going to open an investigation. He goes, and then it was Project Blue Book. And he goes, now we're looking at, he goes, it clearly appears it was a cover-up. It was meant to lie to people. It was meant to obfuscate the facts. And he goes, that's just the way it is. And he goes, and you're hearing it now. And he goes, and I don't know what to tell you. I literally don't know what to tell you. And he goes, and there were Congress people back in the 70s or whatever, you know, and back in the day. He goes, they were upset. They wanted to get to the bottom of it. He goes, Jimmy Carter ran on that when he got into office. He was going to get to the bottom of it. He got in and he got quiet. Bill Clinton was another one. He was going to get in there and he was going to get to the bottom of it. Reagan was one. My understanding, when he was governor of California, he basically saw UFOs. And this was, and again, I don't think it was a newer one, but I hadn't seen it until recently. And what happened was
Break beneath the endless tide.
they talked to, I think it was somebody that was with Reagan, because he was in his jet as governor, and that's when they saw it. And there was somebody there. Now I don't know if it was the pilot or if it was one of the crew on the ship or somebody that was with the governor from Hollywood, one of his friends. But they talked to somebody, and I think it might have been the pilot, but I'm not sure. And when they asked, they go, "Well, did you see it? Or, you know, more importantly, did you believe it?" And he goes, "Look," he goes, "I got to be honest with you." He goes, "I don't see how anybody who saw what we saw couldn't believe it." He goes, "I literally don't understand that there could be somebody that saw it that would not believe that that was a UFO." And he gave a speech. He gave a speech to the UN, I think it was.
This fight is over.
It was either the UN or it was the American people, but it's on YouTube. If you look around for, I think if you type in, like, again, maybe you won't find it. Maybe it's been scrubbed, I don't know. But there used to be this one on YouTube, and I think if you typed in Reagan's UFO speech or something like that, and he basically, and this could have been his Alzheimer's too. It might not have been rational. It might have been his Alzheimer's, but he was sitting there saying, "Well, you know, imagine if we were visited by creatures from another planet, how small and insignificant our differences with each other would be.
The gods strike
And
through
we'd
me.
maybe start to work together to solve problems instead of fighting amongst ourselves." He actually gave a speech like that. I believe it was at the UN, but I might be wrong. And somebody said that might have been one of his moments where, yeah, he was affected by the Alzheimer's, but he was speaking from the heart over stuff he had seen as president. And my understanding with Jimmy Carter was when he got in there, and it was George H.W. Bush, the president, he was the head of the CIA at the time. This is a story I've heard. If the story's wrong, I'm not purposely lying to you, but if the story I'm telling you isn't true, then I'm not telling you the truth. But it's not, I'm not doing it on purpose. I really don't know. I wasn't there. I think you can all believe that I was not there when Jimmy Carter, even if I was old enough, I think you can all believe I was not there when Jimmy Carter was asking for classified information from the head of the CIA. But they said H.W. Bush was the head of the CIA,
Eternal conflict may
and Jimmy
come to
Carter
an
asked
end,
him for
but
stuff on the
today
UFOs.
is not that day.
Wanted everything.
It is not ready
And
yet.
he was told by, again, this is the story, he was told by H.W. Bush, "No, you don't have a need to know, so you can't have it." And another story I heard, and these are ones I don't think they're talking about anymore, and they might not be true, I don't know. But when Eisenhower was president, they tried to shut him out of this stuff. And the reason why I think there's at least maybe some truth to this is because of him talking about the secret military-industrial complex, like at the end of his term. I might get the hell out of Dodge here. Oh, this is scary.
I must wait to use that ability. That ability is not yet recharged. I must wait to use that ability.
I don't want to lose my character. Yeah, but You know, and to me, and again, this is one of those things where, you know, people in the Democratic Party don't always have the guts. They should have fired him on the spot. You're fired. Then bring in the deputy. Hey,
It is not ready yet.
he's fired. You're now the acting CIA chief. I want this. And if he doesn't hand it over, you're fired. I'm also going to recommend, I'm going to talk to Congress, I'm going to have you recommended for criminal charges for withholding evidence from the, you know, and that's what he should do. He should be, I'm going to talk to the Attorney General about having you charged with crimes for withholding evidence from the Commander-in-Chief, me. And, you know, and lock you up until we find somebody in this fucking office that'll like. But the thing is, like when Clinton was in there, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard the story that he gave up because he was, and again, I don't know if this is true, I really don't, but there was somebody connected to Clinton, and I can't remember the name.
I am returning to town.
It was either he was connected to Clinton or he was connected to someone who was connected to Clinton. There was a guy, and I heard this came right from the guy. He was someone that Clinton had put in the White House counsel's office. That's the president's lawyer. You know, the official lawyer for the presidency, not the president. And he told him, he goes, hey, I got you this job. There's only two things I expect you to do for me to kind of thank me for getting you this job. He goes, I want to know the truth behind the Kennedy assassination. And he goes, I want to know the truth about UFOs. You know, I want to know what's at Area. He basically wanted, it was a broad statement. He wanted to know what was at Area 51. He wanted to know the truth behind it. And I think it was that guy, and I can't remember if I'm right or not. But somebody basically said that Clinton backed off because he started getting concerned that they were going to kill him like they killed JFK. And I don't know. I literally don't know. But I got to be honest with you. I was working for an auto company, and I was trying to do the right thing about quality and that. And then my health got bad, and I can't work anymore. I don't know if I can blame him. I think I have a better understanding for that than I did when I was healthy. Because, you know, nobody's going to poison the president. Nobody's going to kill the president. Well, what if they are? You know, because I am firmly believe that I was drugged or poisoned for being a whistleblower. I really do. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which I really don't want to devolve this conversation and get into. But I would have never thought in a million years that this would happen. And everything I look at now, yeah, that's exactly what some shitbag did. And so I don't know. I don't know. I can't get mad at him too much because of the stuff I've been through. It's like, you know, hey, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. It happens. You know, maybe he may, you know, if he really was, if that story's true, maybe he was right. Maybe they would have.
Your flaws are revealed.
You know, I really don't know. I gotta change something. I'm in a good mood and I don't want to fuck that up. But no, but you know that's going on. But he said, he goes, you know, my understanding is they're pissed off and they want to get to the bottom of this. They want the truth. But he goes, there isn't bipartisan support to do that for the American people. And if there isn't the bipartisan support, it might not happen. You know, it just might not happen.
I need to go back.
And you know, so there's that. But these were all good, and I can't, like I said, that one there I think might have been a 3 hour. It was at least an hour and a half. Might have been a 3 hour, and then that accidental truth one. He was talking. I think it was longer, but he was talking like it was an 89-minute documentary. Well, the ones
You're
I've
the
seen,
new Tristan.
it looks like it's a hair over that. But you know, it's roughly like an hour and a half or a little bit more, and. But that really looks like it might be interesting because again, like that guy started out and he started talking about quantum something or other with plants. Oh, and I want to get into that. Now that I forgot about it, I want to get into that now that I'm remembering it. There was this, and she was a scientist, and it was kind of like Bruce Lee. She was going to use a movie to get her message out. You know, this thing a lot of people don't realize when Bruce Lee made his movies, especially like Enter the Dragon. My understanding from one of his students that's still around, well, as far as I know, he's still around. He said that, you know, Bruce Lee's whole intention of doing movies was so that he could teach. He wanted to use movies as a vessel for getting aspects of the martial arts out. And I think that's what she was doing. She wanted to use movies to get some of her theories about plant life out. And the whole theme of these movies is that when trees got older, like, you know, it's like something straight out of the Lord of the Rings. When trees get older, they have the ability to shepherd and assist younger trees. And I got to be honest with you, when I was watching that, and I think I might have been off work for my health issues, but I was starting to get the health problems. But I got to tell you, I was watching it. As far as I could tell, I was coherent. I might be wrong. But I was thinking, God, this is just crazy shit. But she was really hot. So I'm like, you know what, fuck it. You know, maybe it's crazy, but she's hot and I'm enjoying the movie. You know, so we'll go. But like when I saw that thing where he was talking about quantum photosynthesis or whatever, it made me think of that movie where, you know, it's like, well, you know, none of this, if any of this is true, then maybe all of it's true. You know, I really don't know, but that was the thing. And if you know what movie it is, please put it in the comments. I'll try and look at it later. I will try and get my stuff to YouTube, but I just haven't. I got some stuff uploaded to YouTube, but I haven't posted any of it. But oh my God, that was just fun. Oh, and I want to find it. This one here you should check out too. God. I might not. Okay, let you all. I don't know how much I've watched since then. I wasn't sure I was going to stream today. Now this guy that I'm going to talk about, he would be, I don't want to do it. I found a video for that guy I was talking about earlier where I far as I know he's completely legit. I get a funny feeling when I see him. I don't know if I trust him. And I don't know that that's enough to tell you. I don't really feel right in telling you not to trust him, but I really got to give it. Oh, here's another one. This one's almost an hour, but The Truth About Roswell, Decoding Decades of Deception. That's the Y Files. That one's pretty good. But this other guy, if I can find it. Oh, hang on. I would say he's like similar to Joe Rogan. Maybe not as good Definitely not as big as Joe Rogan, but I would say he's in that venue.
I imagine that
And,
the hero of prophecy would be more like.
See if I can hang on. Get that paused. Okay. The channel, the YouTube channel would be called Flagrant. And you can just go to, like, if you want to start out small and see if you're going to like it, because you might not. I mean, if you don't like Joe Rogan, you're definitely not going to like him, I don't think. And if you do like Joe Rogan, you still might not like this guy. But he's a comedian. And I've seen him doing some raunchy shit. Like, he did one where he was talking about how queefs were like a depth thing for the VJ, where it was telling you it was just taking too much. I mean, just some weird shit. He did one where I guess she was really hot, and he started talking to this woman in the audience. Well, then he found out, and he was down south somewhere. He found out that she was there with his son, and he's like, "Wow, that guy looks a little young for you. Is this your date?" And she goes, "No, it's my son." He goes, "We've heard stories about you people in the north." And I guess they just started cracking up. But the thing that gets me is he's a comedian. He's raunchy. He's done some, I think, again, if you don't like raunchy, you're not going to like him, but I find him funny as hell. But when he does, like the ones I've seen, it's just been a couple of them, he seems to take this seriously. And like that somebody even made a comment, they go, "Oh my God, you had Graham Hancock on there, and you were taking it seriously. You were letting him speak." Well, they gave him and the other group, and I don't know if they're all comedians or just his buddies or what, but they all would prod some stuff. They would add some stuff in a little bit. I'd be doing a lot more unless I was just having a bad day. But for the most part, they seemed really interested in letting him speak and getting to the bottom of it. But yeah, but you can do the flagrant clips. That's what I found first. And I want to find, if I can find... Yeah, I guess I watched this on Sunday. And then I watched some of the clips of it on Monday, I guess. Oh! Now I'm going to butcher his name, and for that I apologize. Michio Michio Kaku, K-A-K-U. You can go look up Future Space. Michio Kaku just revealed declassified photos from Venus by the Soviet Union. That was a good clip. Oh, now this is another good one you can check out. Full interview. Investigators say second Roswell UFO debris field discovered. This was News Nation. And the one guy on there... God, I think at one time, like his job list, he was at one time he had something to do with the Robert Heinlein or Heineken. It's the guy who is the lead scientist for the Project Blue Book, and he was the director of that guy's institute briefly or for a while, and he's on there now. I think he's with MUFON now, and then the other guy. God, he's got a UFO show, and I can't think of that. My brother, when I asked my brother about it, because he's on a channel he watches, I don't. My brother had said, he goes, "Yeah, I think I watched that episode, and I think I watched that show a couple times." But it's a guy that's got a UFO channel or UFO show on like Discovery or Travel, one of those channels. I can probably get it on, YouTube. But they're on News Nation, and they're talking about the Roswell one. And here's the thing I gotta say, and I just want to throw this out there: there is so much stuff that's coming to light, and maybe it's shit. Maybe we won't be able to get to the bottom of it. But a lot of this stuff that's out there right now, you know, Roswell, like I said, you know, I've seen video clips where these guys seemed nuts. They absolutely seem nuts. And I don't know if any of it's true. I can't find enough. And again, I don't mean it in a bad way. I just don't know. But there was this guy, and they showed clips of him from like the 70s or the 80s or something like that. And he died shortly thereafter, they claim. And I don't know if any of this is true. Could all be nut job shit. I honestly think it's probably nut job shit stuff. But this guy talked about how he found some underground base in Dulce, New Mexico, and you know, he got seen by aliens who attacked him, and he was an engineer. He had a 45, and he shot a couple of them dead. You know, it's really, when you get into it, it's starting to come off as crazy as some of the shit from that American Sniper guy down in Texas. God, I can't remember that dipshit's name either, but you know, that guy there where he made these stories up, and none of it can be true. This all seems crazy to me too, but he's like, well, you know, in his book, he's like, I got pulled over by the cops, and I gave them a business card, and they called it, and they were told, oh my God, you've pulled over American Hero. I think his name is Chris Kyle or something. You've pulled him over. You got to let him go. We'll just come pick up the bike. I'm exaggerating a bit. But, you know, they basically, you know, were told by some unknown voice on the phone that they just had to let him go because he was an American hero, Chris Kyle. And what had happened was he was pumping gas. He was going to spend time with his family, and some fucking desperados came up and were going to carjack him. And he spun around and gunned him down like some kind of a fucking shitty Western movie. And it's like, my God, I'm sorry. That comes out, and this was the same way, you know. He's like, oh, well, you know, I'm an engineer, but I had a 45 on me, and I gunned him down when they fucking attacked me, and then some military people came in and dove and tackled me, and a couple of them died, and I got hit with a laser, and my chest opened up, and I almost died, and they got me to safety. They saved my life, and it's like, oh my God, you know. And again, but like when you hear Congress saying that fucking intelligence people are coming forward and telling them, yeah, there's a covert UFO retrieval program, and people have died from it. It's like, you know, I don't know anymore. I really don't know. But yeah, anyways, here's the video, and it's almost 3 hours long. But it is Graham Hancock, banned from pyramids, Joe Rogan debate, and Antarctica's history or something like that. And but it's flagrant, and I thought it was very good. And the only thing I want to add to this, there was something else I was watching, and I think it was on, I might be wrong, but I think it was on the History Channel, or it was on one of those science channels near the news channels, like Discovery, Travel. And I was having a bad day. This might be all a delusion. I don't know. But I've heard the stories that there are pyramids on Antarctica, or at least a pyramid. I've heard that one before. I swear to God, I was hearing one where they were talking about pyramids under the ice in Alaska. And I don't know. I literally don't know about that one there, but this thing with Graham Hancock, first off, he started, hang on, okay, I got everything here. I might not do a whole lot, but I got a couple things done on this. What I'm gonna, well, let me check and see if I got any Paragon stuff. Nope, no Paragon stuff. Oh yeah, because I've gotten it so far, I gotta catch up. So yeah, no Paragon stuff. Oh,
Thank you for coming here.
I'm glad I screwed up. I screwed up, and then... Oh, maybe not. Hang on. Oh, no, this is a brand new one. Okay. I thought I forgot to get my, my stuff from them.
I must try this somewhere else.
There we go. Must have been hitting the wrong button. Okay, now I don't know if this is going to work, but I'm going to try and get it on the screen and talk so I can get through the Skinwalker stuff and the other stuff. I'm not going to try and, if it's not working, I'm not going to go through the hoops to get it working. And, but the, but he does this a lot where he was talking, he talked about the Netflix show he did, but he was talking about, he was talking about stuff. He was talking about how, you know, there's a lot of stuff where mainstream archaeology just doesn't want to handle the truth. And he goes off, and again, I'm not going to go into it because I'm not going to do it justice, but Flagrant, the video, go find it. If you got an hour, if you got a couple hours to kill, go watch it. You know, play some Minecraft while you're doing it. And, but he got talking to the guys, and when he got talking about Atlantis, the one guy goes, well, yeah, Atlantis, 'cause he was talking about the problem with archaeology and how they've got their narrative, they've got their story cooked up, and they don't really care if they run into stuff that negates that story. They just, and it, to me, and again, I don't want to come off like one of these nut jobs like InfoWars or something like that, but there are people, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and there's other groups, they will tell you, and my understanding is this is factual, there's scientific data to back it up, they will tell you that the government group that George Bush and them put on, hi Patches, they put forth a narrative. Here's what happened. But apparently the only way they could put that narrative forward was to hide evidence. Like, I want to give you like an example that would maybe be a little easier to understand, because in that way, if I'm screwing it up, I'm not misleading you. But like, let's just say hypothetically I was a bad guy, okay, and and hypothetically, you know, I found out the people that drugged me when I was working, and I just went to their house and set it on fire. Okay. Well, let's say I floated a story to the cops, like that NIST group, not NIDS. NIDS is Bigelow's thing, but let's say I floated this story where, hang on, let me make sure. Yeah, okay, we're on hard. Let's say I floated a story like, oh, well, we're going to throw out the evidence that I was actually in town, and we're going to throw out the evidence that, you know, my computer was used to figure out where these people live. And, you know, and we'll just throw out the evidence of the maps, and I'm just exaggerating here. And that's what they did. There was residue that showed metal and other things had been heated by super temps. Well, their storyline, I might be wrong, but my storyline is, or my understanding is, that if there was superheated residue, well, then their story couldn't match. That had to be thrown out. And, and there was another one, and I think the NIST group did, and there was a friend of mine, his buddy was doing this, or somebody he knew was doing it, where it was some kind of super secret Indian special oven that proved that even though the flame was high and it super secretly sucked the heat down into the plane or the building, and he superheated the stuff in the ground and melted the ground first, and it got the whole building hot at the same time. And then what happened, because my understanding by the architects and engineers, that this thing fell exactly like a building fell when it had been demolished. And you can go look at the video, and like I can't remember who it was, and this might be the nut jobs, but this evidence is right. They showed them showed them multiple examples of these buildings where they had gone in, and they basically had used explosives to break the structure of the building, and they showed that the building broke floor by floor from the top on the bottom, and the whole building just collapsed. And they said buildings never do this naturally. And that the thing, they had people going, yeah, buildings never break like this. If you didn't have the explosions where they broke down the structure of the building so it dropped, because they said the building fell at roughly the same rate like if you dropped a bowling ball at the same time. And they said if you didn't break that structure, then what should happen is even if building fell in order, like from 40, 39, 38, 37, which is what happened. It didn't start at the bottom, it started at the top. And that they said, well, then the room would have got heated, it would have melted, and then it would have broke. And then the one behind it would have resisted. And even in 5 seconds, it would have slowed things down. And then when it collapsed, the next building or the next floor would stop for a couple seconds just to slow down. And the chance that the whole floor would fall down all at once instead of part of it falling and then tipping over, that's another thing that was an issue. But I finally did where this guy, it was some tandoori oven thing, and I took a picture of it. I took an actual picture, and the only flames you can see are where the buildings were hit by the planes. And I can't remember the guy. Even if I could remember the name, I really don't want to out the guy. We'll just call him Tweeter, okay? Because I don't want to out him. I don't want to bitch about him, but we'll just call him Tweeter. And I go, yeah, we're gonna give Tweeter here said the crack pipe theory of what exactly happened is that, and I drew arrows. I go, magically the buildings would hit here, and the fire that you're seeing would magically get sucked down to the basement of the building and magically heat this thing up and make the whole building melt at the same time. And it would just magically drop, instead of all at once, it would magically just drop down single level by level by level. And he gave up. He knocked his bullshit off. But it's like, my God, man, it's okay to have an open mind. It's okay to be, open on this. But your mind is, if it's open enough and out, it's going to fall out. And that's where he was at. This kind of mind level is your brain's going to fall out. You can't survive this shit. Well, Graham was talking, and when he mentioned Atlantis, and these guys were like, well, Atlantis is, and they were laughing. They go, Atlantis is the flat Earth of the of like the Smithsonian, yeah, I'm starting to fade. I'm gonna try and get through this and do a little bit for. That's why I'm not playing. I'm like getting down, but archaeological, findings. And then he goes, yeah, he goes, exactly. And then he goes, yeah, so tell us about like flat Earth. And he goes, I really don't know about flat Earth. And he goes, no, we meant Atlantis. And he's like, oh, okay. Well, this is the thing. And there was an aspect to this, and if I'm forgetting, I apologize. Literally, go watch the video flagrant, and in case I forget something. But he got talking, and he said, well, yeah, the whole thing with Atlantis, which a lot of people don't think is real, especially on the archaeological, the Smithsonian, that the official people. And he goes, here's the thing. And they go, well, wasn't his uncle? And he goes, no, it was one of his ancestors. And he said, Plato told from his ancestor, must have been passed down to the family, but he talked about Atlantis. And he basically said that they were people that were like, I want to say like 9,600 BC. And he said, now here's the thing. Now we know when Plato was around. He goes, so that roughly puts it around 11,900 BC or whatever. He gave the dates. I'm probably getting it mixed up. And I'm not blaming that on, having health issues. That's normal for me. I don't, that's not my thing. But he said, so that's an actual thing we have, and we can put a date on it, and we can look at it. Well, then the other thing he talked about is he goes, but now his ancestor was, I think he said it was like Solon or something like that, and that guy was around 600 BC or something like that. And he goes, because of that time period. I think that's what it was. Plato was like 300 BC and or 900, whatever it is. But the date on Solon, I'm getting, again, bear with me. I'm doing the best I can. But with Solon, that again gives you another date. But again, not real clear because it's different. It's basically from the same source that Pluto is getting his. But, it's dates. You can, and that date matches up. But, hey, it's his ancestor. That's where he got it. He's just being accurate to the story. He said, well, he goes, then the problem you have with archaeological digs is when you look at Göbekli Tepe, and if I'm not screwing this up, this is the spot around Turkey or Pakistan or something like that, and their time period of when they suspect the dig was, that it matches up too. It also matches up with Plato, and it also matches Solon. And I had sort of heard that. That was all not new to me. That was all old stuff. But what got me is he got talking about something that was Egypt or Greek, and it was a temple. I want to say it was like northern Egyptian, and it was not written in newer Egyptian. It was written in like mid-century or mid-Egyptian, which is an older architect. And that person, if I'm not mistaken, I might be mixing up. There might be something I'm missing. There might be something that I'm not going to be able to tell you. Again, go watch. If you find this even a little bit interesting, go check it out, because Hancock will do a much better job than me talking about it. But if I'm getting it right, they did not talk about Atlantis. They talked about the primordial ancients or something like that. But he said it's the Atlantis story. And the language that was carved in there, he goes, they dated it that it was something, their story said, well, yeah, this is something from like 7,000 years ago. Well, when you look at the actual date of that language, it matches up. And it word for word, other than the name, it was basically talking about Atlantis. It's the Atlantis story, but they're talking about the primordial ancients or something like that. And so that whole thing was interesting that I found. And there's a lot more to it about a lot of this stuff. Well, then the other thing he got talking about, and I kind of reached out, and this is where I'm going to slowly start to accidentally merge into the Skinwalker Ranch. Some of the stuff and again, I'm not mad, I'm not hurt, I'm not trying to criticize, but some of the stuff that I talk about, and Brandon Fugel will give it a thumbs up. If I'm real lucky, he'll make a comment, okay? And I don't know what happened. He might not have liked another comment, and I might have been wrong, or the suggestions I made after watching Graham Hancock, he might not have liked that. And again, I even admitted, hey, maybe this is a bad idea, because some of the stuff that is currently in the episode, and there might be later stuff going on. There might be other stuff that happened, because I've already heard that Eric and Brandon, at least one of them has said that by the end of the season, some of the fans might be needing therapy for some of the stuff that is happening on the ranch this year. And well, anyways, he was talking about Graham Hancock he was talking about I'm going to be as accurate as I can. It may be wrong, but it was something that was in the LSD family. And if I'm understanding it, it was a fungus. It wasn't chemical. It was a fungus that you could dissolve in water and drink it. And it was of the LSD family, so you'd get high as shit about it. And he got talking about that, and I'm going to do the best I can, and I know I'm going to be forgetting some of this, so basically go watch the video, get the full scoop. Maybe I'm going to get it wrong, but, please, if it's something you're interested in, if you find it fascinating, go get the scoop on it. But there was a case of this, and he goes, look, I didn't do marijuana. I didn't do any of this stuff when I was young. He was in his 30s, 40s, or 50s when he jumped in. He's in the 70s now. But he didn't start doing any of this. And he claimed that when he experimented with some of this LSD, because he wasn't an author, he got this task to try and write a book, and he did some LSD. And he said there was something in there. Some kind of intelligence, non-human, that kind of embraced him and reached out, and basically he was writing a better story. I may have lost connection when I lost I lost connection when I apologize. But he said, this thing interacted with him, and it actually made him a writer. And he goes, that's why my book or two was really, really good. Not because he goes, I wouldn't have been successful if I hadn't have done this, And he got talking about it. Well, then another thing he got talking about, and I don't know if it was LSD or if it was something else, but might have been that DMT. But he said there was something else that he looked into, and I kind of take something away from that. I really do. But he was talking about another one of these hallucinogens. And what happened was he did it, and they had somebody that was supposed to know what they're doing. And I'm not putting this on anybody, but just to divert a little bit, there was this was the martial arts was the reason I did it. There was a guy, he was not one of Bruce Lee's students, but he trained under one of Bruce Lee's students. And it's one of those things where it's kind of a JK. If you get into Jeet Kune Do, it's a little bit of a J. My understanding in it, and I'm not completely on it. I don't completely understand this, so I could probably, if I was healthy and I could still research this stuff, I'd probably have a better understanding. But I know I got a better understanding that I did when I was 18. I was starting out. But he basically inspired, and I went out to California. I had a buddy from high school a couple years ahead of me. He went out there. And fuck it, he was there for years, and he trained under this guy. I was a seminar rat. I went to seminars and learned it, and I studied from the lower instructors here. But what happened was he inspired his students to read a book by Carlos Castaneda, and it was called Journey to Ixtlan. And I want to specifically say that when you read it, because somebody at work, cause what I did is I actually liked the story, and I read, my brother might be home pretty soon, I don't know. I actually enjoyed it, and I started with Journey to Ixtlan. That's the book. And that was the one that he kind of pushed his students to read, and that's how I kind of got hit on it. My one friend who was training on these, oh yeah, he really likes people to read this. You might want to check it out. Well, I actually read some of his other ones, and I want to say there was 3 or 4 stories of his that I didn't read. I think I had some of them, but I hadn't gotten there yet. But after I read Journey to Ixtlan, what I did is I started out with the first book. And I think Journey to Ixtlan was either book number 5, book number 6 or 7 or something like that. But I basically read the other ones, and then I got up to Journey to Ixtlan. I read that one again, and then I think that's where I quit. And then a year or 2 later, I read Journey to Ixtlan, and then I went back, and I think I started at book 1, and then I think I read up to Journey to Ixtlan, read it a second time. And then I think I read either part or all of the next book in the series. And it might not have existed when I first started reading them, but it was out now. And I either read part of that or I read the whole thing. But the thing is, and I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but my take on it was the gist of it had nothing to do with doing drugs. But like Carlos, I think was learning from a guy called Don Genaro there was Don Genaro and I think Don Juan. And one of them was his teacher, and the other one, there was a name for it, and I don't know. But this was the thing, that this guy was being taught to be a Indian or a Mexican person of power, like a medicine man or something like that. And what happened was he went to this guy and he basically told him that he wanted to learn, he basically went to this guy and said, I would really like to know about, medicinal drugs. That's what he wanted. He goes, I would like you to tell me about the medicinal drugs of the Yaqui Mexicans or Indians or something like that. And the guy goes, well, I don't know anything about that. You have to talk to the medicine. You have to talk to the plants. And he bugged the guy enough that the guy actually tried to teach him. Well, he basically tried to put him in a place where he would learn from the plants. And what happened was he couldn't get the guy to learn. He kept putting him in the position to learn. And the guy couldn't learn, that couldn't learn. Well, then what he did is he started putting hallucinogenic drugs into the guy's beef jerky and his food. Because he just all of it, and this I can't remember, this was before Journey to Ishlan. Journey to Ishlan was kind of like one of those books where it was not a continuation of the, like most of the other books, it's like, book 1, book 2, book 3, and it was a continuation, Where when he got to Journey to Ishlan, what he found out was, I discovered something, and he didn't go back to the beginning that much, but what he did is he kind of explained what he had learned, and he had to go back, so it was really kind of rehashing old shit, but it's kind of like one of those things where he's like, well, hey, this is what I thought a number of years ago, and I was wrong. This is what I learned now. And I'm going to try and explain to you the stuff I did in the past up to now. Well, one of the things that he explained in there, and I think this was in Journey to Ishlan, I might be wrong, it might be one of the earlier books, but it was the native way, and I want to say it was the Yaqui, I think it was Mexicans, but it might have been Indians. I'm not entirely. It's been a while since I've read these, and this was not the main thing I was taking away. It didn't really matter. It was the other stuff, not what boundary a person that he was learning this from lived under. And but he but Don Genaro, I think, was his instructor. Don Juan, I think, was the guy that he said was his instructor, and Don Genaro was the I'm going to just call him an antagonist. But the way he explained it, he goes, well, yeah, the way my people would teach people is you don't beat your kids. He said you don't mistreat your kids. But he was explaining that if you got a kid that won't behave, what you do is you hire a stranger to beat the shit out of them, and then you come as a helper, as a teacher, to explain to him what he's doing wrong and to shape him into a better person. Because he said, if you are the one trying to teach him and you're the one beating him, if you're the one punishing him, well, then what will happen is he will despise you and you won't get the results you need. But he goes, if some stranger comes up and beats the shit out of him and you come to his rescue and you come and help him, then all you're going to get is goodwill from your kid. And this was the thing that happened with him, because it sounded like this Carlos Castaneda was his only student, or he didn't get her. Like, there were a lot of times where when he was with them, he was the only one there. Where this Don Genaro, I think it was, he had like 3 fucking students that he was training. 2 people that he was their mentor to, like Don Juan was for Carlos. Well, he found it really weird, and I think this was in the Journey to Ishlan, when he got talking about these other people. They were happy to be friends with him. And the weird thing is he was afraid of Don Genaro because he had all these weird things when he was around. Like, there were times where something happened while Don Genaro was there, and he got sick to his stomach. He got sick as could be, and he just had, like he came down with something. Something affected him, and it just fucking him up. Well, the thing is, when he told them about the bad stuff that happened, when they go, oh, he's always really good to us, but they go, Don Juan, the stuff he does, oh my God. They were having the experience with Don Juan that Don Genaro gave Carlos. And I let a guy I work with read it. And the thing after he read it, he goes, that was actually a really interesting book. He goes, do they have any more? I go, you can borrow them, but I go, that's probably the best book in the series. And he goes, okay. He said, I don't need to read it. But I go, what's your take on it? And he said, well, he goes, basically, it would be like if you created a religion for drinking beer. He goes, he basically created a religion or whatever you want to call it for taking these, hallucinogenic drugs. And this is the thing, and he kind of got into this, and I'm explaining it in a lot more depth just in case somebody does it. Because my understanding, when you get into these older cultures and they get into these, the drug use, one of the things they do is they have these, and you can call it religion, you can call it a protocol, you can call it a superstition, whatever you want to call it. These older cultures where they did stuff like this, like the Native Americans and stuff like that, they had these cultural taboos. And where you could do this stuff, it was hallucinogenic, it had an effect on your life, but they would put you through this process, which really cut down, I think, on overdosing on it or getting addicted to it, because you couldn't do this just to have fun. You couldn't do this for recreation. They had these ironclad rules, kind of like if you go back in the day, you had these ironclad rules that you couldn't eat pork. And when you look at it now, the main reason is because back in the day, if you didn't cook it right, you'd get deadly sick. People didn't know. They didn't know, hey, when people, they're not possessed by the devil, but when this shit grows in your stomach and it goes through your intestines and it goes into your brain and you start acting really weird, they were basically preventing people from that. Same thing when they wouldn't, like certain religions would not let you get into shellfish. Again, they thought it was evil. They thought it was something else. But no, there were people that were probably allergic to it, and they figured out, hey, when certain people eat this, they have something bad go wrong, so it's got to be bad. It's got to be evil, so we're going to just put this taboo out there, and people won't do it. And with the drug use, it's the same way. Well, I am not advocating for anybody to do it, but I'm saying that if you are going to experiment with this, because, and I could be wrong, I hope I am, but when you see people like Joe Rogan talk about doing this DMT, I think they're doing it like it's marijuana or alcohol or something else. And there's probably a reason why all these old cultures that did DMT, they had these hard and fast rules. And like when you look at the way Joe Rogan has turned out, I think that's the side effect of doing too much of it. And with and it appears, and I'm not an expert, but what I've seen Graham Hancock talk about it, it sounds like he has followed at least some of these, because he tells you right out, hey, look, if you're going to do this, you want to find somebody that knows what they're doing. You don't want to just do this, And one of the things he got talking about was that him and his wife went and did DMT, I think it was, and they ran across like a psychic vampire. And he goes, like me, I look my age. My wife's roughly at my age, give or take. I think she's like a couple years younger, but he goes, she's roughly my age. But he goes, my wife does not look her age. She looks much, much younger than what she is. Well, they did this, and he goes, I gotta tell you, if you're doing this drug, whichever one it is, I think it was DMT, but I'm not. It might have been this LSD one he was talking about. But he said this person started. He admitted when he got caught that he had done it. He did it a lot. What he would do is he would go to these and he would try to invade people's mind and steal their energy. And that's why he goes, we thought of him as a psychic vampire. Well, the problem was when he tried to enter his mind and when he tried to enter his wife's mind, he goes, this drug really opens you up. And it basically makes you vulnerable to, if there's a bad person. So he goes, if you're going to do this and you're going to do it in a group, he goes, which is probably a better way, at least until you learn about this stuff, you got to make sure you're with good people because you are open to stuff. And he goes, this guy would try to invade people's minds. Well, they were all on this shit. And when he started asking the guy's wife about how old she was, and he found out how old she was and how young she looked, well, then he wanted to steal her energy. And I don't know if I believe any of this, but I find the story fascinating. And, well, he got talking about it. And then, later on in the thing, he told that comedian that, hey, you should really try that. And he goes, before I do that, you got to give me the name of that psychic vampire, because he goes, I want to be on the lookout. And he was being serious. Like, I want to be on the lookout. He goes, that group he was with, they kind of put it out there. They basically put the word out on that guy. And he goes, I don't think he's welcome that much anymore. But he was letting people know, hey, to go do this. And there's a lot of other good stuff he talked about in that interview. And then the getting into the Skinwalker Ranch now, and there's a few things I'm going to forget. But, this is what I brought up with Brandon Fugel. I'm like, hey, I'm watching this thing. And, this was the other thing. He got talking about the Sphinx and the Egyptian ruins and stuff like that. And one of the things he brought up was that he was talking, like, one thing with the archaeologists is when you look at the Sphinx, because it's a lion, and he goes, there's one of the... There is one of the pyramids, and there is a theory there's a theory of when it was born. I want to get this right. It's something you can look up. And the theory is that the guy who discovered it, or the guy that was working on it, he was on the verge of getting disowned by the royal people that were funding his research, and he wasn't really producing anything. And I personally think this is true. I don't know that it's true, but I think it's true, but I think, there's debate on this. Let's just put it that way. Well, what he did was he found this message that it was built by Khufu or something like this at a certain time. And I think what they have found is that writing that was discovered, they found that it fell off and there was another message on it, so they think it was a forgery. And I firmly believe that, but I can't sit there and say that definitely, but it sounds like that was a forgery. And there's also like geological evidence that some people say that prove that it is much older, that it has weather damage, meaning it was built when there was still an ocean there, and all this other stuff. And again, I think that's true. I think there's more evidence that suggests that than says it doesn't. But when it comes to the Sphinx, according to Graham Hancock, or Hancock, there is no proof that that happened with the Sphinx. There's no proof that that happened with the Sphinx. And he said that the date that archaeologists have given to the Sphinx, he thinks is wrong, because he said if it was really built then, and he gave you the age of whatever animal was in power then. And like I think we've actually moved on, but it was in the 70s. They had that song, It's the Dawning of the Age of Aquarius. And I think Monty Python used to show it a lot. But that's an actual age. There's animals assigned to that. And again, I don't know if it's different for Chinese, or like Chinese has the year of the rat, and the year of the dog and all that. But for Egypt, if they have a separate one, that he goes, well, if that was built then, it likely would not be a lion. It would have been the animal that was dominant in that age. That's what it would have been. And I reached out to him, and the thing I said, look, I go, watching Ancient Aliens and other shows, they have put forth a theory that the Sphinx is actually not a lion. That somebody recarved it after it had been created, because they said the head's too small and the body's wrong. It is not the body of a lion. It's more like the body of a dog. But they said, there's evidence. Again, maybe it's not overwhelming, maybe it's wrong, but there is evidence to suggest that the head of the Sphinx may have been recarved, and it might be way older than what people think. And again, they found evidence that, water damage from erosion, not from a desert. And there's all this other stuff that they've done, because it was buried for a couple centuries and the sand protected it. But and I mentioned, I go, so if it really was a dog like some people think, and he's not going to answer it. I haven't seen any answer to it yet. But I go, if it really is a dog and not a lion, because he's saying, well, yeah, we think it's this, because if it was a lion, it should go back to this date, not this date. Well, what if it's actually a dog? Because they've actually done stories on this, or shows on this, I think on Ancient Aliens and others, where they speculate that it actually goes back to the dogs. It's even older yet. And that the people who carved it probably believed in our connection to the Sirius planet, and and stuff like that. Well, I don't know if I'll get an answer to it. Well, then the other thing I put in there, and I tagged Brandon Frazier. And again, I'm not bad mouthing the guy. I don't blame him for a bit. I even admitted that it might not be a good idea. But I asked him, I go, watching Graham Hancock and him talking about, hallucinogenic drugs that are used by many cultures, Native American otherwise, and reaching, being reached out by some kind of a non-human intelligence. I go, have you thought about that? I go, have you thought about doing that on the ranch, where, maybe every season you do one, and you do it in multiple spots on the ranch. Like you could look at the Mesa, you could look at Homestead 1, Homestead 2, the Triangle, and so on. And just do it a couple, basically get the permission from the state government and the federal government for educational or maybe even religious background. You just get the legal ability to do it, so you can do it. And basically see if anybody that goes through this actually feels like they have been reached out or contacted by a non-human intelligence. I didn't get nothing, so I'm thinking he doesn't want to do it. And really, and I don't blame him. I would not be offended if he put out a public message. God, that just seems dangerous and stupid. He could do that. I would not be offended. I would completely understand, and I wouldn't blame him. I'm not the one that's going through it. If you think it's dangerous or stupid, to me it kind of goes like with the South Park guys. They said that somebody wanted to know. I think it might have been on the Daily Show that. Wanted to know why they were so willing to make fun of like Christian leaders and Christ and Hebrew leaders and the Jews, but yet they didn't really want to go after Muslim stuff, Muhammad and the Muslim leaders. And they told him right out, whoever was interviewing, I think it was Jon Stewart just years ago. They go, look, we asked that because we would put up these things where we wanted to make fun of the Muslims for, like when they killed that guy, they killed a cartoonist. Guy drew a Muslim cartoon and I think they killed him. I don't think they tried. I think they killed him. And they said, hey, look, we make fun of Jews, we make fun of Christians. Why are the censors on here not letting us do it? And they told them flat out, they go, look, please don't argue with, we really don't want to die. We don't want the terrorists coming after us. And they said, look, we can honestly respect that. They were and this would be the same thing, so if somebody basically because of stuff I've done on Twitter or comments I've made on YouTube, if you have the ear of Brandon Frazier, please, or anybody on the ranch, please let them know that if I offer up an advice, you don't have to hide from it. You can physically tell me that you just don't want to take the risk, or you think it's stupid, or you think there's something better. Any of the ideas, I don't have an ego in this. I really don't, because the people that he has on that ranch are just so much smarter than I am. I'm just offering stuff up there that I find provocative, and if it helps them out, great. And if not, if they've got a better idea, hey, I'm going to watch the show. I find it fascinating. But I did mention, hey, would this be something, every season you could do a new culture, you could do new ceremonies, because this is the thing, and if they're not going to do this, I'd really ask them to not. But if you're going to do this, you should bring in experts. You should bring in, you might want to get that Native American guy who doesn't speak English. And have that. I think he's a Ute Ranger or something like that, or First Nations Ranger. I think his name's John. I've seen him on the History Channel. I've seen him on other shows, and he was the one I think that he was on like first season, and he came in. He said, hey, I would be willing. We had this thing where when we wanted to dig, we would ask permission. I could do the ceremony where we're going to ask for permission for you people to do this. I think it was him. And he did it. And then when they go, we really want to thank you for doing it. And he looked at me and goes, hey, look, yeah, I did the ceremony, but he goes, I really hope you were praying with me, because he goes, I'm not going to be here. I really hope you guys prayed with me, because you guys are the ones that need the protection. I'm not going to be here. And he was being dead serious. But you would want, like, maybe someone like him, and again, it might even be somebody that doesn't speak English, and have them walk you through what you have to do, kind of like Yellowstone. That they got, usually most holidays they have a Yellowstone marathon where they're showing that on Paramount, on the regular channels, not the Paramount Plus, and there's a thing in there where that Dutton kid, because his wife's an Indian, they kind of say, well, I don't know if it was his wife or the chief, but they want him to do this kind of like spirit walking thing, and they basically tell him what he's got to do. They put him out there, they put a barricade out to protect him, and they keep an eye on him from a distance. Well, I would want something like that where, for anybody. Don't go out there and just get high like Joe Rogan and some others do. Actually have somebody that can walk you through a strict, hopefully safe process and see what happens. That I think would be fascinating. But you know what? If they don't want to do it, Don't do it. If you think, I mean, if you just don't want to do it, that's enough of a reason for me. If you think it's dangerous, that's enough of a reason for me. So, if anybody, if you, I doubt if he's going to do it, he's way too busy, but if you break into this, Brandon, seriously, you do not have to shy away from fear of hurting my feelings. You just don't, because I don't want to see anybody get hurt. And I'm absolutely willing to admit that some of my ideas are probably stupid. Stupid every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I don't know, but that was something that was going on, and I'm like, God, that would be, because again, they got this stuff going on, and here's the thing. He also got real quiet. Maybe they did something like that. Maybe it's coming up, but I don't know. Because I said, I go, this might be a bad idea, especially, I go, you had some like Native American band that came into, like ceremony band that came in to do their ceremonies. And I go, they started, this was the last episode, I think. They came in and started doing some of these Native American ceremonies. And what they found was, before they did that, they started experimenting with these signals. And when they hit a certain frequency, though, the ranch kind of came alive. Seriously, History Channel, start watching it. You'll find it fascinating. And what they found was, there was one frequency when they hit it, the guys could feel according to them, they could feel the ground vibrating. And then when they had that ceremony band come in and do like an old Native American ceremony, and my understanding is there were like 5 or 6 members of the band, give or take a couple, and each one was from a different tribe. And I'm guessing that they had ceremonies from each one of the tribes. There probably wasn't one size fits all. There was probably ceremonies from different tribes. Well, you could hire them and they would come and do these ceremonies. Well, they did this, and what they found was that frequency that set off the ranch, the drums these guys were using hit it. Those drums hit that frequency, and they were noticing an effect. They were absolutely noticing an effect. I find that fascinating. And then these guys, were going on the radio, hey guys, we're kind of thinking maybe we should quit, because they started seeing things out of the corner of their eyes. There were things they started seeing while they were doing this. And one of the I don't know if it was a ranch hand or one of the scientists, and Dragon, the guy who's head of the security, they're like, yeah, if you're not feeling comfortable, by all means quit. And then one of them basically, they go, we're really hoping that you'd be willing to come back again and do some more of this. So yeah, if you're not sure, quit. But they were seeing things, and what was funny is funny might be the wrong word, but the thing that I find, and again, I'm not there. But the thing interesting, but funny is probably the wrong word. It's probably a shitty word, but that's the first one that comes to mind. But this guy was trying to explain what they saw, and I think his name is John. I think he's like a Native American ranger. It's like a, and I don't know if that makes him like a medicine man or what, but he's got this. It's basically the title he's given. I think I might have him wrong, but I think I've heard that, where he's got some kind of a ceremonial or actual title with the First Nation. But my God, this guy was talking. He said, well, yeah, it's there, but you can't really make it out. And then the guy goes, yeah, they're there, but it's more like it's in the corner of your eye. It's there until you focus on it, and you can't see it. And they go, yeah, that would be a good way to describe it. And this guy's a Native American. Like I said, each one of these guys but they're not like him. They don't have his background, I don't think. And he goes, my people called them shadow people. And he started talking. I mean, he went into the whole thing. And the weird thing was, they had their thermal imaging there. The spot where these guys said they could see it, there was a cold spot there. And it wasn't there when they started. There was no cold spot there. And then when these guys started seeing something there, they started noticing a cold spot. There was something weird going on there. And I found that fascinating. I really found that fascinating. And then the other thing that was on the ranch, and this might not have been this episode. This might have been, I don't think I did any streams a week ago, or at least I didn't do many. I was really having some health days. But they had that guy there, and he caught something on his high-speed camera. And they showed it. And it really kind of looked like that thing that hovered. I think it was first season that they found a dead cow, and when they reviewed the footage, they found that there was something in the sky that hovered over that cow and then died. And they talked about that. And this looked exactly like it. Well, then, and this is why I kind of got into Mick West at the beginning of the beginning of this rant here. But they found it, and it zipped across the screen, and I don't think it stopped. I think it was moving. And the high-speed guy, he looked at it, and he goes, he kind of calculated it in his head. He goes, it's an estimate, but he goes, that thing crossed this far on the mesa in like a little over 1 second, like 1.06 seconds or something like that. And then Travis, he went and calculated out, and he's like, well, this thing was moving over 3,000 miles an hour. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning, and I forgot about it until just now. He immediately said, oh, and what he did is he showed a video, and they zoomed in, not as much as him, but they zoomed in on it that night. It was for that episode. And I didn't see any of this when they zoomed in. And he goes, well, yeah, the fly flies in front of the camera. And, and again, he always seems to do this. Maybe not every time, but he always seems to try and find the simplest answer to debunk it, whether it's right or wrong. And he was claiming that, oh, well, this was just a fly flying in front of the camera. Well, my initial reaction was, hey, look, I watched it, and I might watch it again today and take a look and really try to critique that spot. Because I watched it, and they showed They showed it. They showed it multiple times on the episode. I didn't even have to rewind it. They showed it multiple times. Then they zoomed in on it. They looked at it again. I didn't see any of that, but he slowed it down, and he zoomed in a lot more than they did. And it had this thing where it looked like it might have been a fly buzzing. Well, here's the problem. It was an oval. At no point did that, this whatever you want to call it, this blurry thing, it was a perfect oval. At no point did anything leave it. So like the wings, if they came up, never left that oval. But yet when the wings flopped down, the oval didn't disappear. It was perfectly oval. It did not fluctuate like, oh, well, here's the fly going up and it's blurry, and here's the fly going down. Even when there was no wing, it was still like blurry. And, you know, and I just made the comment, I go, I didn't see any of that when you guys had it on the show. I go, and if it isn't, it isn't. Because, you know, Brandon's like, well, you know, we'll have to take a look at it. You know, we're trying to be honest. But the thing that gets me is, and that other video I showed where I talked about that guy, where he's talking, well, yeah, this is the way it was back in the 50s. It's the way it was back in the 70s. There is a history of various people that I am not going to be able to recall the names. Like one of them, I think, was Corso. He was a military guy that purposely debunked UFO stories. That was his job. I think he's admitted to it, that he basically lied about UFOs to debunk it for the government. And now he's trying to make money off it now that he's retired. I wouldn't trust that piece of shit for anything. I figure when he was part of this debunking effort for the government, fair enough, that was your job. My understanding is that shit's illegal anyways. It should have never been happening. But you don't get my trust after the shit you did. You don't. It's gone. You never get it back. There's nothing he can do where I'm going to want to, you know, trust him. And, but I go, you know, we've seen this before going back decades where is it possible that he is making stuff up where him or someone else was able to edit this video to show this? Because I go, there's just something about this is rubbing me the wrong way that it's not true. And then after I thought about it, I went back. I go, watch that video again. Flies don't fly like that. I go, you know, if you guys, I don't know how much you guys spend out and about, but I go, I've never seen an insect fly like that. It flew perfectly straight and perfectly steady speed. And if you've ever watched a fly, a bee, a wasp, they don't fly like that. They're because of their nature, there's always, you know, when wind hits them, etc. They never fly full tilt like that. They never fly steady like that. They will jerk up and down. Their speed will fluctuate. And this is something that I think, because to me, if he's not being, again, I don't necessarily even know if he's being dishonest, but, you know, he's not, I really don't think he's an honest, good-natured person for the cause. I don't think he knows what he's talking about when he does this stuff. I think he's just looking for the quick hit, and I really think it's sad. But, and then the thing, you know, now I mentioned, I can't remember what it is, but it was something I mentioned earlier on that, yeah, you know, there's another aspect of it, and I talked about it earlier. You'd have to go check it out. But there was something in there. It's like, well, yeah, that's another thing that doesn't ring true with this being an insect that was caught. It might be the thing about the wing. You know, if it really was a wing, there should have been distortion, not a perfect oval. Like when that wing went up and that wing came down, that oval should have distorted. And I might tweet that out to him, you know, hey, here's another fucking flaw with Mick West's idea. And again, if you guys look it over and you're convinced that, yeah, that's what it is, and you want to apologize, hey, that's fair enough. You know, you guys, I think you guys are beyond reproach. I think you guys, you know, everybody's entitled to make mistakes. And, you know, and you guys seem to be like really honest brokers on this. But that's another thing on it where it's like, well, if that really was a fly, as that wing went up, it should have distorted the field. And then the field should have undistorted as that wing came back down, and there's no fluctuation. So it looks more like a shimmering of a field than it does of a wing. And so I don't know, because you know, nobody can prove it for sure one way or another unless you bring this thing down. But there's just so much of what he was saying that just did not ring true. And but that was just a weird episode. That was really just a weird episode. Well, you know what? I don't know when we're gonna eat. I gotta empty the cat litter box. Anybody that watches this later, anybody that watches, if I do make this to YouTube, I want to appreciate you for doing it. Means a lot. Hope everybody has a good 4th of July. Based on my health, I will stream later this week. I can't promise every day, but I will try to get on any day I can. Peace out, and I hope everybody has a good day.